What's up, everybody? This is Pistol Pete. I'm coming to you from my office at home. A lot of you have been asking about certain questions on the questions for Mark videos, so I figured I'm going to go ahead and put together a mega mix of all of them. So this is every question you've ever asked for Mark that we've shown. So if you're looking for one, it's in this video. This video is nearly 4 hours long, so we hope you enjoy. As always, if you have any other questions for Mark, feel free to ask them in the comments, and thank you very much for tuning in.
What's up, everybody? You got questions, we've got answers. Today, we're asking your questions to Mark Baker. So if you had a question that you put in the comments, it may be getting answered today. And if you do have one that you want answered, maybe consider putting it in the comments moving forward. The first question is from Black Keys Productions, and they ask, what is the spread?
So the spread is where you slide to where you hit. Let's say like mine, if I'm sliding on 21, that means I'm playing 10, trying to get my ball to the Baker box. So my spread as I move right would get smaller. If I slid on 15, I'd probably be hitting 7, the spread would be 8. If I slid on 25, I'd probably be hitting 12, my spread would be 13. If I slide on 35, I hit 20, my spread's 15. So I'm always trying to get that ball to that very specific spot down lane. So the spread is the difference between where I slide and where I hit to make my ball go to the right place down lane.
72 Dexter 72 Manly 72 asks, I've seen guys bring 5 to 10 balls to league to bowl. They're switching ball to ball each frame and not catching up with the changing lane conditions. What's your opinion about this? We use the same league, same house, same oil pattern each night.
I don't bowl league anymore, but when I did bowl league, I just threw one ball the whole time. But that's me. I would say to bowl league now, I would say 3 to 4 balls would probably be the right amount of balls. The lanes do change quite a bit game to game to game. I think if you had your arsenal in the right order, which is not what my specialty, that'd be Mr. Chris Barnes or Sean Ryan. I think are 2 good people at that. But I would think 3 balls for league would be a good number.
Franklin Frank 4749 asks, is the Baker box a tool to be used anywhere on any shot pattern?
The Baker box, as of now, with the videos I just replayed, just came out with the Game Change video series, that's specifically for house shots. Farther down the year in 2024 towards Christmas, we hope to get it produced where we're going to do the sports shot Baker box with Mr. Jason Belmonte, Anthony Simonson, Chris Prather, and Daniel McEwen. It's already been filmed, now it's editing, and the Baker box for sports shots is completely different. But the Baker box that currently is on the wall, you guys see, that's for specifically house shots.
Biggie Small Jaws asks, how do you even come up with the line of play in the first place? Like, how are you determining what angle to play and where to slide and target?
Easy, I always start too far right. I want to see my ball hook. So my first shot in league would always, I'd stand on 10, look at 5, for a very specific reason. I don't like playing there. So my first ball would go in the left gutter. So immediately I know I'm not playing those 5 boards. I wouldn't move 15 boards left. I'd move 3 or 4 more boards, stand on 15, look at 7. I can make that work, not my favorite. That ball tended to be going away Brooklyn too. Then I started making small incremental moves left. I know in league I'm going to stand between 20 and 25 game 1, 25 and 35 by game 2 or 3. I always start too far right to see how much it hooked, get the oil to go towards the head pin, and then start making moves. My goal as a bowler is to eliminate boards to play. There's 39 boards on a lane. I know I'm not playing left of 25. I never had enough hand. I don't want to play right of 7 because most house shots don't. So I've eliminated 22 boards in the first 2 shots of warm-up. I'm down to 17. I'm a pretty smart guy. I can figure out which 2 to 3 to play.
Isaac Martinez if3oy asks, why do we use the miss number and where is it coming from?
The miss number is just observation. That's Baker box zone 1, the miss. People tend to move left, and they're very good at hitting their breakpoint board, 5, 6, 7, 8. But when they move left and add too much rotation, the ball's going more left or right than it's going forward. So the ball's getting between 36 and 40 feet. If your breakpoint's there in game 2, it's just going to start up too soon. 2 pins, flat 10, solid 9, and the dreaded 3, 6, 10 or its friend, the 3, 6, 9, 10. So the miss zone 1 is the correct board number. It's just too soon, and you can't control your ball for 25, 30 feet.
Denali Rebel asks, Do you have any tips on bowling in a house with high humidity that maintains 80 degrees inside?
So when it's that hot, the lanes are probably going to break down a little bit. To me, the biggest problem with high humidity and something like that would be the approaches. So the best I know at it's Chris Barnes. He has probably 50 or 60 iterations of slide soles. He cuts them in half. His heel, he cuts them in half. You should never worry about the approach when you're bowling. So always make sure you have enough slide heels, and you might want to cut them in half. Chris does that, where he starts to slide on his pad, then his heels are separated. So he's never stuck on the approaches. When there's a lot of high humidity, especially when synthetic approaches, they tend to get a little sticky like you're bowling in glue. That'd be the first thing. And then if you're the lane conditions, I would imagine the lanes are going to break down pretty quick if it's that warm. So don't be afraid to make big moves.
It's 2 JFB was up 72,000 says, is he essentially saying that a two-hander slide step is broken into two parts? Because he mentions sliding, but stops you from swinging, and then says use your right foot to generate power.
No, it's not two parts. It's just getting your body in the right position. If you looked at Mr. Simonson and Belmonte in the video, their pivot step replaces their third step, and then they're pushing out their powers out of their right leg, and they're creating a slide by pushing. The slide is never independent from your pivot step. Your pivot step pushing forward always creates your slide. So they're pushing their right leg, not only for the power of the ball, but that's also creating the length of their slide so they stay balanced. If you pull down, a lot of people that plant, if you step on it, invariably you pull it down with your shoulders and you're using the wrong power source. So no, your right leg, if you're right-handed, use your power source for not only the ball, but it also helps create the slide and make it very, very consistent.
D. Hygienamaz asks, so there should at least be a minimum of loft as a result of your hand being under the equator.
Yes, I'm not a big believer in the ball landing by the foul line. I like the ball to land out between 18 inches and 40 inches on the lane. I think your hand stays behind it. It allows the ball to go on the lane, and that really has a lot to do with core management, which I talked about in my video series. So yes, I do believe the ball should be on the lane. From the foul line, the first 12 inches, I'm not a big believer in that.
Josh Hiley 2462 asks, where can we get Mark Baker videos and books to buy?
The video, you'd go to my website, markbakerbowling.com. There's a picture of the Games Change video series. You click on it, it takes you straight to Vimeo. With Vimeo, you make an account with your email, you come up with your own password, then allows you the option to buy the one-handed or the two-handed. It seems like a lot of coaches are buying both. I've sold a lot of videos to both people. That's how I buy that. To buy my book, I think you have to go to Amazon. I no longer have the books. It's from Wheatmark in Arizona. You go to Amazon, they can sell you the book. And everything else, you just have to email me about virtual lessons or coming out and see me, or actually come and do a Camp Bakes.
And then that leads to our final one, which is by @KyleDavis693. And he's asked repeatedly, where can I find that poster in the back with the 3 zones?
So the 2 Baker boxes, I have a copyright on those, and I don't have a patent on it. I don't own the lane. So if you send me an email, you go to my website, I have my emails on my website. If you go there and you send me an email, I'd like to buy the posters of the Baker box. I'm not going to send you those posters. They're pretty expensive, but I will send you a digital copy of the Baker box for $15. You'll send it to me. I'll send it to my project manager, Anthony Santos. He'll be in contact with you. He'll send you a digital copy of both Baker boxes, talking about the 2 misses and then the momentums and the rotations, so you'll get them both. Hey, all you guys watching the cleanup crew, it's been amazing. I'm 63 years old, so I'm not too hip on all this stuff, but I have noticed a giant influx in my virtual lessons, people asking about lessons and about the video. But probably the most common question I get, hey, are you the right coach for me? So instead of taking a virtual lesson or coming to the Westpac Training Center, probably the easiest way to find out if I'm the right coach for you is to buy the video, whether you're one-handed or two-handed. You're gonna see my style. You're gonna see my type of energy. I talk pretty fast. I'm pretty intense. I may not be the right guy for you, but if you buy the video, you'll see exactly how I coach. Then I would do that, would be the least expensive way to find out if I'm the guy. Then you would want to either schedule a time at Westpac Training Center or do a virtual lesson. So you'll know what you're getting before you fly all the way out to California and drop a couple thousand, or you go in there and you pay $150 for a virtual lesson. I think the easiest way to figure out if I'm your coach is to buy the video. You'll see how I see it, and you'll know if I'm the right guy for you. Thanks, guys. Really enjoy seeing you. It's amazing what social media does.
What's up, crew? Earl the Pearl here. We're back at Westpac Center with Mark Baker. You guys got questions and we got answers for you. So keep commenting, keep subscribing, keep following us in this journey. We'll make sure to get those questions answered for you.
So how do you measure timing if you plant instead of slide?
That's a good question. So the two best planters that I measure timing would be Shannon Pulowski, probably the best planter of all time. Mike Haugen does a very good job of it. Instead of when their foot gets flat on the ground, like I measure when you slide and your foot gets in front, I tend to measure the heel. So when their heel really gets into it, that's their slide, their heel, and they pull down with their toes. So when their heel hits the ground flush, that's where I measure timing for people who plant.
Perfect. Braden wants to know, what are the drawbacks of bowling one-handed with no thumb? Also, is it important to learn how to play different parts of the lane as a beginner? The ball I was gifted hooks like crazy and I hate playing far left. I'm considering whether I should get a new ball or get good with this one.
If a ball hooks a lot and the bowling center you bowl at hooks a lot, you might want to invest in another ball because you're gonna be trapped where you have to play because of the strength of the ball. The one-handed, the drawback with no thumb is your backswing can't be very high because if your backswing gets too high and there's no thumb, the ball will fall off. So the people that I know who are pretty good at bowling one-handed with no thumb all have one thing in common. They're really, really strong. So if you're a strong dude, should be no problem.
Understood. That's a good answer. Capone wants to know, how important is it to slide versus stepping into your release? He started stepping because of bad approaches, and he can't break the habit.
Well, you know, it seems to be a more and more common thing. A lot more people are planting instead of sliding. A lot has to do with the differences in the approaches. You know, like if you bowl on wood all the time and you go to a center that's synthetic, very, very sticky. Las Vegas, sometimes in the summer when it's real windy, it's still in the desert, very slippery. Then if it rains in the summer, you can't slide. So your weather has a ton to do with your approaches. So I understand why people plant. It's not the end of the world, it's just a little different thing you do. A lot of times people that plant, the only problem they have is they plant with their left foot and they pull down with their shoulders. That makes them have a hard time with a consistent release and accuracy.
Okay. Next question. I am looking to purchase one of the training videos, but I'm not sure which one to get. I bowl one hand, no thumb. Do I get the two-hand video or the other? Which one would benefit me most?
The two-handed video, because with no thumb, your swing is going to be short, closer to what a two-hander's backswing looks like. So that would be the easier way to measure your timing. If you don't have your thumb in it, you would measure like your two-hander even though your arm's back there. So I would definitely recommend it's still tricky because of how you start is going to be different because your left hand's not on the ball. So I'm not trying to sell you both videos. You know, they still have to have a push away. So I would think the two-handed video would make more sense.
When/how do you get behind the ball? Arm/rotation on backswing, or is it something else?
I don't measure the backswing too much because that's not where you're throwing the ball. I think too many people, this is very important, too many people try to do things they're told. Remember this, you're trying to do a bowling function. More important is how your body functions. So the pros are the most efficient bowlers in the world because they use how their body functions and then they bowl on top of it. Too many bowlers, they get in their stance and their arms facing the wrong way. Their hands are all jacked up over here, trying to stay behind it in their stance. Well, guess what? That's not how you walk down the street. Your thumbs hang in. Now, if everybody's thumbs hung out, there'd be 230 bowlers walking down the street all over the world, but they don't. So how your body functions is way more important than the bowling function. It has to go together. So I don't care if your hand's completing the ball on the top. There's a window on the bottom. When it gets, from your downswing through your release, that's the only place your hand actually needs to be behind the ball. They don't measure your score in your backswing.
You're right. You're right. Great answer.
It's all because it doesn't look right on video. There's a guy named Walter Ray Williams Jr., who, if you just break him down and you didn't know who Walter was, you would want to change everything except his bank account.
And his results.
Yeah, his results. So Walter did some things, very uniquely to Walter, but obviously he had the best record of all time. So don't just go by what it looks like on video.
How can you become more accurate in hitting your target if you are left eye dominant but are right-handed?
So that's me. So you just need to know your numbers. So my numbers are 4 and 3, which means I drift 4 and I miss my target by 3 on every shot. So simple way of putting it, if I want to slide on 20 and hit 10, I start my approach on 16, I look at 7. So I'm left eye dominant. I miss my target by 3 boards pretty much every shot I throw. So I just adjust to that. If I want to play 10, I look at 7. If I want to slide on 20, I know my drift is 4. So I have a 4 and 3 drift to the left. So I know my numbers.
Next question. Having trouble getting into the timing spot for two-handed shots. Any tips to correct this?
Keep your shoulders up longer and have more of a push away. So what bowlers tend to do is they tend to drop in their second step. If that happens, your head drops. Your head can't drop till the ball goes back. As the ball swings by and your head drops, that gives you height of backswing. So then when your legs get there, then your left arm's in the timing spot. Obviously, Jason Belmonte does it perfect. Anthony Simonson, Spencer Robarge, they're unique in how they do it a little bit earlier. I'm not sure I would teach that. They're very unique. They have kind of the same body size. They both have pretty quick feet. But for the most two-handers, it's more about staying tall through the push away. So when the ball swings back, that's when your head drops, and that lets your hands go up a little easier, much easier to get to the timing spot. If your head drops in the push away, then you have to manufacture your backswing. You almost invariably have early timing.
What happens with me when that happens? The ball hits the ground before I get through my ball,
Right.
my backswing. Next question. I don't drift. Am I broken?
Nope. So your favorite 2 bowlers would be Chris Barnes and Norm Duke. You're in good company. So those are, and Barry Asher. So I can name 3 people that slide where they start and hit what they look.
So most people do need to figure out their miss and don't even understand that.
Yeah, most people don't know it, and they get so hung up on it. My numbers are, if you drift less than 4 right or 7 left, I would never change you. If you drift more than 4 right, you don't like playing inside. If you drift more than 7 left, you don't like playing right a second arrow.
Yep. Simple. How do you figure out, well, you already tried to. You figure out your rev rate, guys, by...
How many pins you knock over? So rev rate's only cool if you can control it. That's like you can hit the ball 300 yards, but if you can only hit 300 yards and it only barely stays inside the driving range,
You don't know where it's going.
doesn't relate too well to the golf course. Now the guys who watched on TV this weekend, they hit it 340 dead straight, then their rev rates are pretty good. So rev rate's only good if you can control it.
True that.
Just all because your rev rate's high doesn't mean they knock down more pins.
That's exactly right. Next question. Are you telling him, oh, this is a question for me and you, my 70-30 rule. They were wondering if you're telling me to use 30% for my swing to relax and the other 70 for my lower body. I know that's
just if you watch somebody throw the ball well. Here's how I look at it. If it's 70-30, that's a swing. Soon as the numbers get 50-50, that's a throw. And if you have too much upper body movement and you're throwing it, you're not going to be accurate and you're not going to have a consistent release. That's why if you look at some of the pros, the best being Parker Bone, 90-10. P. Weber, 90-10. These guys are the best. Chris Barnes, 90-10. 90% effort coming out of their legs. Their arm just happens to be attached to their body and it's a swing. And at the end of their swing, they had a little rotation. So that's why a guy like Pete, who's not very big, but had probably the best release of all time for a long period of time. Parker Bone stayed in balance for basically 40 years. And if I look at it today, he's leading again. He's just never going to stop because he's had such good balance. If you look at them, they have one major thing in common. Here's what they have forearm sizes that are the same. So if you look at my forearm, this is how you don't get in the Hall of Fame. This one is much bigger than this one.
That's on mine.
So that's why I wasn't such a good bowler. That's 4 titles. Parker, 37, same size forearms. If your forearm gets big, it's tough to be a good bowler. I tried and tried. Not quite the Hall of Fame material.
I've never heard anyone say that. So that's going to be
Pete Weber, Chris Barnes, Dave Husted, Dave Ferraro, Randy Pedersen. I could just go on and on. Yeah. Mike Albee, all these Hall of Famers, their forearms were the same size, so they had swings. So they were the most accurate people under the most pressure. Because you don't get in the Hall of Fame throw an occasional double in league. You got to throw them 6-baggers on TV. So those guys had the same size forearms because it was swing. This forearm gets too big, you become a bowling coach.
So question, would you argue that women have an advantage in that regard?
Well, yeah, they're just built different. So that's why so many bowlers really enjoy watching the women bowl, because it's much more relatable. Nobody likes watching E.J. Tackett more than I like watching E.J. Tackett. I couldn't do that in 100 years when I was 17. But when I watch Shannon O'Keefe or Danielle McEwen or Brianda Cote, when I watch them, I kind of bowled more close to them.
Yeah.
That's why I think some of the women are more, people like watching them because it's much more relatable.
True.
But now in other sports, I want to watch Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
I just can't believe how fast he is for 6'7", 6'8".
Yeah.
Get up and down the court, shoot a 30-foot jump shot, then dunk. I played basketball.
You
I
know
couldn't
what
do any
it
of those
is.
things. I could shoot, but I couldn't do that. So that's why in other sports, we're much more relatable to watching the people that can do things I can't do. Whereas in bowling, people like to watch people do things they can do. So that's why I think the women are more fun to watch, because we can all relate to that a little bit easier.
What's going on, crew? We're back with my dogs here at Westpac Training Center. Here to answer more questions for you guys. We got a lot of untouched questions that you guys have already filtered in. Make sure you like and subscribe and keep more questions coming so we can make sure we answer them. Crew out.
Okay, Mark, good to see you.
Good to be here.
So, first question from one of our subscribers is, how do I straighten my footwork?
The easiest way to think about that, you don't want it to be too straight. It's a little bit of drift's not bad, but especially if you're right-handed, let's say you take 4 steps. That first step and that third step should go directly under your head for balance, and you always want to try to slide on the same board as your pivot step. If you do that, your footwork will you want to be in balance. If you watch the pros, their head and their feet tend to stay on top of each other. Chris Prather, Jason Bomani, perfect examples, Bill O'Neill. Every step, their head stays on top of their feet, so they start in balance and they maintain balance. That's why they post so many shots. Most amateurs, after their first 2 steps, their head's way behind their second step, or if they take 5, their head's way in front of their second step. So basically, they put themselves out of balance, considering how you walk, how your body functions, more important than how they're throwing a ball. If you make them work together. How my body functions when I walk, I stay in balance. So if you're out of balance in the first 2 and you try to rebalance yourself in the slide, that's why it's so hard to be consistent and post. Where pros tend to stay in balance every step. Kyle Troop does a great job of it.
And when you say post, can you clarify for the amateurs that may not know what that term means?
So post means when the ball comes off your hand, you're able to stay on your slide leg for quite a ways down there. Now they teach you should be on your left leg and post all the way through the pins. I don't believe in that. There's 2 things you can do. There's posting and there's falling off. All right, Pistol, stay with me. So first we're going to look at posting. Remember this. You want to be able to, this part of your arm tells the ball where to go. This tells it how much to hook. So if you throw the ball, it clears the arrows and it's going by the arrows and you do this, you're fine. That's called stepping off. But as you go to throw the ball and while you're following through, you step off, that's called falling off. That's not good because your forearm didn't tell the ball where to go. So if posting is a little tricky for you with the ball going all the way through the pins, make sure you get your fall through, it clears the arrows, and then you stepped right to admire the strike you just threw because you used the Baker box.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Falling off, stepping off, 2 different things.
I just learned something there. I know when I fall off for sure. My first step is with the foot where the ball is. Is that correct? I feel if I start with the opposite foot, I have too many steps and feel out of sync.
Sure, so it sounds like you take 4 steps. If you start with your right-handed and your first step is on the side of the ball, your first step, you're taking an even amount of steps is what you're saying. Nobody takes 2, so you're taking 4 or possibly 6. Most likely 4. Sure, I have no affinity for either 4, 5, 6, 7. I could care less how many steps you take. There are plenty of pros. Parker Bowman 4 steps. David Ozio took 4. At times Brian Voss took 4. You're in really, really good company. A lot of bowlers take 5. It's more of a feel thing. So it doesn't matter to me how many steps you take, and 4 steps is fine.
So being on balance is the most important regardless.
100%. Whatever feels the easiest for you to repeat, stay with that number.
Absolutely. Next question. Mark, when you watch a new bowler throw for the first time, what is the most cringe-worthy thing / biggest mistake that you typically see people do?
I guess I don't see it that way. You know, I've seen myself golf, and it's pretty ugly. The first couple swings are like, you shouldn't even be allowed on the golf course. So because of that, I don't see it that way. My entire job is to find something you're doing right. Even if you've never bowled, it's your first time. Maybe it's just the way you put the ball in your hand. Maybe it's your stance. Maybe you've got unbelievably great footwork because I have people that were, I have a lot of ladies that were dancers. People that were
Great footwork.
Yeah, they just have great footwork. So my job is to find the one thing you do really, really well, and I build from there. So I never really ever cringe when anybody bowls. I mean, we all started in the same place. Some of us just got better quicker than others, but we all start in the same place.
So basically you don't judge a book by its cover right off the bat.
Well, you're trying hard.
Yeah.
Why would it doesn't benefit me to cringe when you start, because if you see me cringe, if you turn around, you're probably not coming back for a lesson. And that's not how I run my business. So as long as you give me 100% effort, I'm always in, so we'll figure it out.
Understood. Next question. Does your book explain the Baker box?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
The Baker box was something I came up with right before COVID. I worked on it when COVID shut us down for a while, but that is something I worked on then. It's about a 4 to 5 year process for me to really get it dialed in the way I liked it before we started using it. I started promoting it. So no, the book has nothing about the Baker box.
I'm new to bowling and I have a weaker wrist, and they start hurting after a while. Any tips to strengthen my wrist and practice releases?
See, in a situation like that, when it comes to wrist braces, I've always been Switzerland. I'm not for, I'm not against, I'm very, very neutral. I've seen some of the best bowlers in the world use wrist braces effectively. So if it's starting to hurt, you may want to try a wrist brace just because you may have broken your wrist when you were a kid and it hurts after 3 or 4 games. A wrist brace may take away some of the pain. So if that helps, you're in good company.
Understood. Next question. Are there any limitations to having a wrist?
Well, like a guy like me, like to bend the wrist back in your stance. You can't really bend your wrist back. I was pretty free with my wrist. A lot of pros, like Barnes, would have a hard time with a wrist brace. Chris tends to move his wrist around a lot for feel. That would be the only restriction.
Understood. Does the height of your backswing make a difference in how you bowl in regards to speed, power, or revs? Or does it matter how high your backswing is? I'm thinking about increasing my backswing a little higher than what it is now to help increase these things.
I've never been a big proponent in trying to make your backswing higher. I'm 6'4", 6'3.5". You're tall. We have long levers. Our arms are, my wingspan is as big as my height. So when I get the ball to the top of my swing, it seems higher. That helps with ball speed. Definitely helps with power. So a lot of it's determined by the limitations of how long your arms are. I've never really tried to get anybody's swing higher. Two-handers, I try to get their swings later because both hands are attached to the ball. But very rarely if I try to do that, I'm more about what does your timing look like. If you get your lower body in there and you're in pretty good time and your balance is good, accuracy and power will come with that.
Okay. Great coaching. Are you ever in the Virginia Beach area? Do you host travel camps?
No, I don't. I'm a Southern California boy. Been living here all my life. I live in Orange County. If I was going to leave, I'd have left by now, I think. But this is my home base. My family lives here. My son's in a good school. So I did travel quite a bit with Chris Barnes. We did clinics all over the world. Travel after COVID became less fun. Travel has become stressful. Travel has become expensive. I'd rather stay home with my regulars, do my camps. So the travel has become less. Hopefully, Chris decides that sooner or later he doesn't want to bowl and we get back to doing some Baker Barnes clinics. He'll be in charge of setting them all up. So send all the emails to Chris Barnes. We would like to have a clinic. You're welcome, buddy.
Maybe we can help you with a tour one day. Who knows? Next question. And this is going to be our last one. How can we get under the ball more with our thumb in the ball? More elbow bend?
That's really, really tricky. Here's how I'll describe that. People tend to start there. I have a lot of people walk in this door, they average less than 140, and they think if they don't have the yo-yo release like EJ Tackett, they're never get better. Here's how I see it. Bowling is, to me, every bowler I coach is a jigsaw puzzle. And jigsaw puzzles are built with the borders. I tend to think the release is the last piece of a puzzle. So the last piece always goes in easy. My job as a coach, when they come through the door, for one thing, I want to be more consistent. If I'm more consistent, I knock down more pins. So the top of my borders is consistency, timing, balance, and accuracy. I build it all in from there, and once I do that, I can tend to fix pretty much all the releases. When you try to fix a release first and you let those suffer, you don't have any consistency. You may have a great release, but releases are only cool if they're accurate at 45 feet. The reason why we like watching the pros is because they're so accurate, then their release magnifies their accuracy. Remember, a bowling lane's built a very specific way. It's 60 feet long. The first 45 feet of the lane is all about accuracy. The last 15 feet is all about the shape, the power, the rotation. If you don't master the first 45, it doesn't matter what your release looks like because it won't hit the pocket.
Great answer. Appreciate you answering the questions today.
Always a blast. Cleanup crew people out there, very nice when you all come up say hi to me at the bowling center. You're watching this. As a 63-year-old guy who's not a YouTube guy, it's pretty amazing how powerful this is. You guys have great questions. It's always nice when you come up. I just love all your enthusiasm. I'll talk to you soon.
Make sure you keep liking and subscribing to the videos. We're gonna have more of Mark for you, and he's gonna be answering more questions.
Yeah, we'll keep, as long as you keep sending in the questions, we'll just make this a segment. We get 20 questions. Questions with the coach, we'll answer them up, get you guys back on the lanes.
What's good, crew? I'm here with Mark Baker, and he's about to answer some of your questions you've been asking us in the comments. Make sure you hit that follow and subscribe button if you want more of these videos. We're definitely gonna try to make sure we hit as many of them as possible. So if you haven't seen your question just yet, be patient, it is coming. We got a lot of questions, but we wanna make sure that everybody's getting the value that they need out of it. So we're gonna dive into that and see what Mark got for us, all right? Okay, let's dive into some of these questions, Mark. Our viewers have definitely had some good ones for us. I'm gonna hit you with a 2-finger one-handed one because you get so many of those already. Can you provide some help with a 2-finger one-handed on shooting a 7 or a 10 pin?
Well, obviously, if you're right-handed, let's go with that.
Yep.
So obviously, you're shooting the 10 pin, you're using 2 fingers, no thumb. Your best bet's got to be a plastic ball.
Yeah.
Because the whole purpose of not having your thumb in it is to have a higher rev rate, make the ball hook. So when you're shooting a 10 pin, that's anti of that. Now the 7 pin should be your easiest spare. Here's the easy way to do it. You're lined up, you're hitting the pocket. Leave a 7 pin. Take your strike ball, move your feet about 8 to 12 boards right, move your target a whole arrow to the right, and pretend that in the middle of your frame, they changed the game of bowling. Instead of the head pin being the goal, they made the 7 pin now the head pin. And you had no warm-up shots. How much would you move your feet? How much would you move your eyes? And you've got to hit the 7 pin like a strike ball. You move your feet about 10, your eyes 5, and you wouldn't even think about it. You throw in the dry and let it curve over there and make it. Or remember that when you shoot spares. If they change the game of bowling on you in the middle of your frame, no warm-up, you just had to make the 7 pin the new head pin, what would you move right to the head pin? People are pretty good at adjusting at the pocket.
Yeah.
Like leaving the 3-6-10. In the middle of the approach, it said now the 3-6 is going to be the new 1-3. What would you move left? And you get no warm-up. About 8 with your feet left, 5 with your eyes left, maybe not hit it quite as hard, and your ball hit the 3-6 like it's now the 1-3. Or another way of putting it, if you're 8 and 5 too far left, you would leave the 1-2-4. You wouldn't even leave a washout. Well, if you leave the 1-2-4, you made the 3-6-10.
You did. That's a strike.
That's another way of looking at it. On the 10 pin, obviously, the easy way to think about it with a no thumb, when you let go of the ball, your thumb should stay at the right wall. Because what happens is you get no thumb in it, and you get it and you rotate it, and your hand goes up. So when your thumb faces the ceiling, that's what makes it the ball hook. So now you're shooting a 10 pin, you don't have your thumb in it, throw it so your thumb stays to the right. Now that doesn't feel very comfortable, but that's in essence almost a backup ball, which people with no thumb almost have to do.
Understood. Understood. I see people with one hand and 3 fingers also still sometimes almost throw a backup ball from just throwing it straight enough.
You're seeing that more and more in play. I mean, obviously the two-handed world is getting very popular. Last TV show I watched Jason Bomani on, he shot the 3-6-10 with the backup. Obviously Anthony Simonson's a little different animal. He shoots, he can throw it any way he wants. Back up, straight, hook it. That boy's got no fear. He's liable to do anything.
Very true. Next question. Why did he say not to start with your palm facing the ceiling? Why did you tell one of us that?
Because that's not how you walk down the street. when you stand up, your thumbs hang in. So when you hold it like this, when people tell you stay behind the ball here, I would much prefer that, because that way you push it, it swings back. You're trying to create a swing. And a guy like you would be a good example. We might do it later. If I put your thumb out and I pull your arm all the way back, a guy that's in shape, you know what's going to happen? Your tricep is going to engage. Once your tricep engages on the backswing, that's as high as your arm will go.
Yeah.
Now, if I take my thumb and roll it in like my arm
go
swing,
back way
my
farther.
tricep never engages. Now I get a high swing. From the top of swing, my hand goes to the middle, and I have that window on the bottom. So if you want more length of swing, don't try to, this is not how my arm functions. There's tension right here. Everybody, I mean, people that tend to get like this in their stance tend to throw it like this at release.
Yeah.
Guys that hold it like this in their stance tend to throw it like this at release. It's how your body functions. Then I add bowling onto it.
I think I just had a light bulb moment, guys. Okay, great answer, by the way. Next question. Did Mark make any comments to Tony about Tone's left hand sliding up during his swing? I'm fairly new to two-handed as well and was curious as to if this was a tactic for higher ball swing or if it would cause your wrist to uncurl too soon by him.
I tend not to watch the left hand very much. I just want to make sure it doesn't come off too soon. I've never been a big left-handed guy on the one-handed or two-handed. I just don't want it going forward, and I don't want it going up. If it goes up, it raises your center of gravity. And I never want your left arm to go forward at release if you're one or two-handed for one special reason. If you ever got in a fist fight and you punch somebody with both hands, you're going to lose the fist fight. So if you throw the ball forward and your left hand's going with your right hand, it's hard to be in balance. You're not going to have much power on it.
Not much power.
It's a balance arm. So two-handers all kind of take it off, you know, kind of at the bottom of their swing. It almost gets to one. It really does get to one hand as the ball comes off their hand.
Yeah.
Left goes around. Some keep it in front. Some coming back. So I've never been a big. I've measured it, and I cannot find a spot where everybody's left arm goes. So I do know that I don't want it to go up, and I don't want it to go forward.
So, could you relate that to basketball then, and having the guide hand on your shot?
Exactly. If you watch all the best shooters, we get here right. You know, like my son when he was younger, when they're little, that left hand stays on too long because they're trying to get it to the basket. I keep saying, if your left hand's helping, you're shooting too far away. Big advantage I had, I never stepped back a shot in my life. I had no three-point line. All my job was to get a step closer, get a step closer, get a step closer, because the shots from 28 feet and the shots from 2 feet had the same value, too. So I never played where I was taking a step back. So obviously, as soon as he started playing basketball, three-pointer.
Yeah.
You want to be Steph Curry. Like, you can't even hit the rim. So what happened was at 8 or 10 or 12 footers, his hand would come off and the rotation would be like Ray Allen's. Perfect. Larry Bird, all those guys. I'm like, why am I picking the Celtics? I hate the Celtics.
They had some shooters, though. We'll give them that.
Got to give them that. Larry Bird, Ray Allen, you could do way worse than that.
They had some shooters.
So, but if you left hands on it too long, then his rotation would look like Jamal Wilkes.
Yeah.
And only one guy who made that work was Jamal Wilkes.
Jamal Wilkes.
The only guy who made that rotation go like this. So yes, in two-handed, if your hand stays on it too long, I've seen people try to pull their left hand down. That causes way too much rotation. It's still a one-handed release. It just comes off way, way later.
True. Understood. Next question. On your two-handed video, you show the timing spot in the ball position as the slide step goes flat. Famous Belmo pose. For the Matt Ogles and Justin Knowles in the world, where should that ball be for a planter as the plant foot lands? I always tried to make my ball be in the downswing spot like Belmo, as his slide foot stops sliding, ball just above the knee, right when my plant foot lands. Am I right in that thinking?
Yeah, so I measure planters when their heel hits. So Matt Ogle, good example, great timing. Very, super long arms, very good bowler. So when Matt's heel hits, he's in the timing spot. When their foot gets flat, they're a little bit below it. Just like one-handers. I use Shannon Pulowski, Michael Haugen as some of the best planters that bowl one-handed. So two-handed, the same thing. When their heel hits, that's where I measure their timing, not when their whole foot's down. Whereas a slide person, when their whole foot gets in front of their head, I measure. But people that plant, I measure their heel.
Okay.
Because when that foot comes down, that tends to be when they sink up their shoulders. So when they step and plant, their foot goes down. That's when the shoulders make their downswing. So if you measure there, they're always about 10 to 15 to 20 degrees early. But if you measure their heel, they're in time.
Nice. And we're probably going to touch more on timing because that's extremely important in the equation of all of this stuff working.
100%.
Last question. Any tips to help keep my left arm quiet?
That's a tricky one for me because I never thought about my left arm my entire career. You just kind of went out there and it died. I was more like Parker and Bill O'Neill. My left arm kind of died. You got, Chris Barnes and the guys from Wichita State a lot of times. They had kind of the swim move. Then people come out there and just keep it really balanced. Bill Taylor back in the day, just have it real quiet. So then you had like Dave Husted, Mark Roth, and Walter Ray. They basically almost dislocate their left arm coming back, but their chest never moved. Most people try to pull their left shoulder back. They tend to over-rotate their upper body. So now their breastplate's not facing where they want it down lane, and that pops their swing out of the slot. So whatever your left arm does, it can't affect your breastplate. If you're trying to get that swing from the back, if your breastplate doesn't move, your swing stays in a slot. You start moving this breastplate 10, 15, 20 degrees left, my swing bounces out of the slot. And the problem with that is the target didn't move. So if my breastplate doesn't move, my swing slot, my ball is going through the front target and the back target. So as my upper body starts rotating, if I pull my left arm back too hard and my chest goes this way, my swing bumps slightly to the right because my breastplate controls my shoulder and my shoulder controls my thumb. So when these two move, it goes out. So now I can hit my front target, but I'm slightly 2, 3, 4 boards inside my back target. That might be the most common miss I see. Always, and it's usually caused by early timing. Because your weight transfer gets on the left leg too soon, this becomes your power source.
Never a good thing. Never a good thing. I know that much. Okay, we appreciate the questions, and anything you want to say to our people out there?
Just keep sending the questions in. I love doing this. I coach for a living. My whole goal is not to be the best coach. My whole goal is to help the most people in history of bowling. If I can help more bowlers through social media, lessons, camp bakes, the video series I did with Jason Belmonte and the crew, my books that are still selling, any way I can help bowlers, virtual lessons, which have really done really well. If I can help the most bowlers before I'm done coaching, then I did my job. It's not about being the best coach, it's being the most helpful guy I can be. And your questions are great. Doesn't matter what skill level you're at, if you're starting out or you're on tour not cashing. Doesn't matter, I'll help everybody. Keep sending the questions, I love it. Keep watching the Cleanup Crew.
Make sure you like and subscribe to this content if you want more of this. Mark Baker, everybody. Cleanup Crew, crew out.
What's going on, crew? We're back here at Winnetka Bowl, one of the best to ever do it. Here to answer some more of the questions you guys filed in. So moving forward, make sure you guys filter in some more, and the crew will do our best to make sure we get them answered. Crew out. All right, Mark. So first question we have for you is, I have 1 ball out of 9 that roll over my finger hole with 95% or more with the flare rings, Zen U in this case. The remaining balls roll over with maybe 1 ring. Why is that?
I am not a ball guru expert on that. If it was all your balls, then I would have a better answer. Seeing how it's just 1 ball in your arsenal that's doing that, that's got to be a thing you got to go talk to your pro shop operator about. I've never seen you throw it. If it was all the bowling balls you threw, flared, rolled over your finger holes, I would definitely have an answer for that. But for you seeing how it's just 1 ball, it may just be that ball.
All right, understood. I'm a 2-handed lefty that has been bowling for 5 years, and I tend to struggle on keeping my hand to the inside. Is there any way I can improve that with other drills?
I'm not a big drill person, but I do know this. If your breastplate faces your down lane target, the break point, I call the Baker box sometimes, then your thumb won't rotate. If your upper body rotates too soon, remember this, your breastplate controls your shoulder controls your thumb. Even though you're two-handed, your thumb isn't in the ball, if your upper body rotates too soon and this shoulder goes forward, then you can't work the inside because that's how your body functions. Remember, bowling comes down to 2 specific things: how your body functions and you're throwing a bowling ball. The biggest difference between the pros and amateurs, the pros use their body to function while they bowl. Most amateurs bowl in spite of how their body functions. So make your body function correctly and your hand won't rotate near as early.
Next question. What's the difference between doing a push away and not doing one? I see so many youth 2-handers have no push away at all. Is this beneficial, or does this make it harder to have a swing?
Well, think of it like a swing set. How would you start a kid in a swing set? Do you push the kid forward or you let the kid hang? So if there's no push away, there is no swing. Or the other easy answer is, who's the best 2-hander of all time? Without a doubt, is Jason Belmonte. Jason has an old school like 70s push away. Watch it, it goes out, he gets the kid pushed forward, and it swings back. If you want a more detailed explanation, please go to my website, markbakerbowling.com, click on the 2-handed video, buy it. I go through everything about how to create a swing with a 2-hander.
There it is. All right, I struggle trying to find the break point when moving out. Is there a set rule, like for every arrow, move out break point, or move out your break point, move 2 boards?
I'm not a big believer in moving the break point around. If you're playing outside, the break point can be a little sooner because you're throwing the ball towards the pins. I tend to think the break point's always between 42 and 46 feet, 6, 7, 8 board. That's what the Baker box is all about. The poster's at my training center. I believe in a very fixed spot. Why? Because the pins are in a fixed spot. The pins never move. So my break point doesn't. Why? I'm trying to get you to have that 6 degrees of entry angle that the USPC deemed the best entry angle. So your break point can't move around that much. Now, every coach does it different. That's my method. Now, when you're playing right of second arrow, the break point can be as early as 38 feet. The hard part is if you bowl at a center with no down lane markers. That does make it tricky.
What should I work on to get my speed up? I've been getting closer to the timing spot, but my speed is still pretty darn slow.
Well, speed's created by 3 things. How big your body mass is. I'm a big guy, so I've always had natural ball speed. The length of your swing and how fast your feet move. So if you're getting close to the timing spot, what I would say is you're going to have to probably, not knowing how big or little you are as a human being, you're going to have to increase your foot speed, and you always want to get closer to the timing spot because your arm is a lever. If you can make your swing longer and your levers are longer, you can get natural ball speed.
All right. How do I get out of a rut? How do you mentally tell yourself to score better after starting the game badly?
You got to lower your expectations. Too many people get too hung up on striking 200, 220, 250. The easiest way to get out of a rut is to lower your expectations. Try to actually get 9 on purpose and just make the spare. Because if you start hitting the pocket over and over and over, it's going to give you positive feedback. I'm close. I'm getting closer sooner or later. But if you're trying to shoot 200 and you're missing the pocket every shot, very, very hard to bowl well. So lower your expectations, try to get 9, hit the pocket as many times as possible. Sooner or later, you'll start throwing 3 and 4 baggers again.
There it is. Do you have any advice on what to do on a burnt house lane as a two-handed bowler?
You better like to play between 5th and 6th arrow. You got to learn how to walk left, get your eyes hard enough left, your ball between probably 4th to 6th arrow, and get that ball over to 7, 8, 9, 10 at 45 feet. If you're going to be two-handed, you better put it this way. If you're two-handed, basically, first arrow is the 3rd arrow, second arrow is the 4th arrow, and 3rd arrow is the 5th arrow. You better become friends with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th arrow.
Perfect. All right. Sometimes my ball hits my hip on the backswing, and I use a 4-step approach. Do I need more of a crossover step for my second step?
No, actually that's backwards. Hardly any crossover step in your second step. I'd make your second step go straight under your first step, one to your head. Make your second step go left if you're right-handed. Make your third step go back inside your head. You won't hit your hip on the downswing. People hit their hip on the downswing tend to have a big crossover step. Then their second step in a 4-step, their second step comes back in front, and that pushes your third step or pivot step to the right. You don't want that to happen. Straighter first step, a little left on the second, pivot step under or slightly inside your head, create a swing path, and you won't hit your hip on the downswing.
If I move my eyes close to my mark, to the dots or closer, will this affect my follow-through? I'm having trouble hitting my mark.
I'm not a big believer in moving my eyes closer to me as a target for one simple reason. I'm 6'4". So if I bring my eyes too far back, it really affects the tilt of my head. And if you're over 5'10", 5'11", and you bring your eyes back, with the exception of Wes Malott, of course, if you bring your eyes back, your head tends to tilt. If your head tends to tilt, you tend to throw it with your shoulder. If you throw it with your shoulder, you can't hit a target. I'm not a big believer in bringing my eyes closer. I don't think it makes you more accurate.
Got it. Does it matter if your left foot is straight at the line? Can you explain a stable plant?
Your left foot, depending on what part of the lane you're playing. Once you get inside 12, 13, you're playing 3rd arrow farther left, your left foot can have a 10, 15, 20 degrees of angle towards your break point. Because if your left foot angles, your chest angles, your hips open up, you're feeding the ball left to right easier. I'm not a big believer what happened back in the 60s and 70s where they get their left foot where the toes are left and your heel's up. That brings your left hip back. I'm not a fan of that. So if your foot's straight, that's fine. If you have it open 10, 15, 20 degrees, pointing open to your break point, I think that's fine too.
How do you get a session with Mark Baker?
MarkBakerBowling.com. Send me an email. That's what I do for a living. Since the videos have gotten pretty popular, being a 63-year-old guy that doesn't use YouTube much, pretty eye-opening for me. I'm learning about it. But in the last month, I've had New York, New Jersey, Australia, England, Scotland, Texas, Florida, Utah, Arizona, Nevada. So they're coming from all over. Send me an email, we'll make it work. I will be gone most of July with my son at Junior Gold and doing other things. August 1st, I plan on hitting it hard again.
Got it. For shorter two-handed bowlers, is it better to have a straight arm backswing or bent?
You know, I've been studying that quite a bit, and I have not come up with one that's better than the other. Some are straight, some are bent. Whichever one gets you closer to the two-handed timing spot, when your slide foot gets flat in front of your head and your left arm's parallel, whichever way you can get closer to the timing spot, whether your arms are straight or bent, that's what I look for. But I have not come up with one that's better than the other just yet.
Please explain why your balance arm shouldn't go up, and how do you stop it if that's already your tendency?
If it goes up, it tends to raise your center of gravity. So I'm a big believer in moving the air forward. So when you throw the ball, your hips stay very flat to create a flat spot in your swing. If you raise your left arm up, the tendency is for your hips to come up out of it. The ball swings in an arc, and you're at the bottom of your swing trying to put your move on the ball. If your left arm goes up, your hand tends to roll up to the top of the ball. So then you're hanging out with your thumb and your fingertips, and you tend to come over the top. So the left arm, there's all kinds of rules. I saw the best I saw was Rod Ross. He would take a string and tie it to your wrist, to your belt loop. Then your left arm can only go as high as that string. And that was one way to do it. I've always thought about keeping my left hand below my shoulder, my left arm stay down. But I'm not a big proponent of your left arm going up at release, and definitely not having your left arm go forward at release. That's like getting in a fist fight, things we used to back in the old days. It's like punching somebody with both hands at the same time. You don't want your left arm going forward.
Mark and a lot of other bowling channels talk about using your legs along with Mark's 70-30 rule. But my question is, what can I do to achieve that, and what can I work on exactly?
So the easiest way to think about that is you need to bowl on top of your legs. So like on my videos I've done, how I coach, if you look at the pros, their head and their feet tend to match up. Their first step, their second step, their third step. They're constantly in balance. Not any different as you're walking down the street. Remember this, say you take a 5-step approach. For the first 3 steps, all you're doing is walking and swinging a ball. You don't really start bowling until the last 2 steps, when you go into your slide and put a move on it and fall through. The first 3 steps, you're not really bowling, you're walking. So if you stay balanced for the first 3 steps, the odds of you using your legs more go way up. You always want your legs to be slightly ahead of your swing. That's why the timing spot, your left foot gets flat in front of your head, your swing should be parallel. That means your legs are the power source, not your shoulder. That would make the 70-30 rule. Remember this, 70-30, the reason why I use it, if it's 70-30, that's a swing. Swings create accuracy. You have the numbers 50-50, 50% legs, 50% shoulder, that's a throw. If you throw the ball, you're never accurate and you don't have a consistent release.
Got it. For someone that is getting into bowling after 12 years, I keep muscling the ball and keep hurting my short head bicep. How can I practice to stop muscling the ball and rely on my swing and hand?
You got to change your grip pressure probably. Get that grip pressure light as possible and the ball doesn't fall off. Work on having a really soft swing, soft hands I call it, having a soft swing. And work on your footwork being a little more ahead of the swing. Definitely work on your footwork, definitely decrease your grip pressure. Try to leave flat 10s. People that get psyched up and get pumping their arm, they're trying to strike too bad. Relax your arm, relax your grip pressure. Try to see how many flat 10s you can leave. After a while, you get tired of leaving flat 10s, but then once you get to that balance and your arm starts hurting, then you can start adding the release back in. But first off, you have to find a way to get rid of the pain when you bowl. Because if you have pain when you bowl, sooner or later, you're going to get tired of that.
How do I stop over drifting?
First off, I would need to know which way. If you're over drifting to the left, it's not the end of the world. If you're drifting to the right, I'm not a big fan of that. So my rule of thumb is if you drift more than 5 right or more than 7 left as a one-hander, you need to work on that. Again, that would go back to you say you take 5 steps. If you make your second step under your head and your pivot step under your head, it's very hard to drift more than 7 either way doing that. Just make sure your head and your feet balance out. That'll help with the drift.
Do you have any advice on making the change from a 4-step approach to a 5-step with a pivot step as a 2-hander? I feel like the muscle memory I've built up is really hard to break out, and every time I try to switch, it's very difficult to find the timing.
Well, I've done a lot of people want to go from 4 to 5. What I tend to do is keep it even. So if you go to 4, I'd go to 6. Just add 2 steps where you don't move the ball, then it's your same 4-step approach. Sometimes it's very, very tricky to change the foot you start with. So a lot of times the people with 4 steps, I've moved them to 6 steps. That way they're still starting with the right foot. The 1, 2, then their approach stops, and their approach starts. You push it out on your first step, which is your 3rd step now. So sometimes if you're having a hard time transitioning from 4 to 5, go from 4 to 6 and just move the ball in your 3rd step. See if some of that feel comes back. It makes more sense because you're starting with the same foot.
Do you recommend walking parallel to the lane or parallel to your target line? I walk parallel to the target line. For example, when I'm playing 4th arrow, I will walk straight or a couple boards right. When I'm playing 1st arrow, I will walk a bit left.
That's usually backwards from most of the bowlers I see. When you play out, walking right's good. When you play in, walking left is better. Because when you're playing in, the lanes are hooking. You're walking away from the hook. If you play out, you drift 1 or 2 right, there's a lot of oil. It's actually advantageous. I drifted 4 left every time. When I played out, maybe 5 or 6. But I tend to drift the same every time. That way my angles were the same. Our lining up was pretty easy. It's very tricky to drift right half the lane and left the other half of the lane. I try to get it down as a bowler who doesn't believe in drifting towards your target. Try to get 0 or 2 or 3 left would be my best advice.
Got it. Any advice to keep my head quiet and chest up as a 6', 6'1" two-hander? I look back at old videos of my bowling and it's something that I don't want.
Well, as a two-hander, you're going to have spine tilt. Because if your head doesn't drop after the ball goes back, you can't get your hands up. If you look at that video of Jason Bomani, the one I did, first 3 steps, he stays pretty tall, shoulders lean a little bit, but when their swing comes back, that's when your head should drop, because that gets your hands to go up, I call it for free. If your head drops early, then you have to pull it up. Now, if you have no spine tilt and you keep your shoulders up the entire approach, you're going to be very limited how far this shoulder can tuck under this chin. So as the ball swings behind you and you tilt your head down, that'll let your left shoulder tuck under your chin and get your hands longer to get closer to the timing spot.
How do you know when to adjust to the oil transition if you're striking like the front 9 and feel the urge not to move?
Well, that comes down to your skill sets. So I'll use me for an example. I have the front 9. I know one thing's cracked. My adrenaline is pumping. I would never move left after that because I know I'm going to throw the next one harder. If I get the 10th, the 11th one's faster. Now, sometimes I have the 12th shot for 300. I would actually move 1 right and just throw a BB down there. It's very easy to throw it hard when you're jacked up. And my personality blends into that, so that was pretty easy. If you got the front 9 and you feel like it's starting to transition, your ball's going high, do you like to throw it slow? Then I would move. If you're hyper like me and you're fired up like me, I would stay where you are, move right, and throw it even harder. Play into what you do. Don't try to change your personality. If you're calm and mellow and you like to be smooth, change.
Also, how do you try to stay warm after practice, but it takes what feels like 10 years between shots with multiple people?
I was very lucky. I bowled on tour for a living, 4 in a pair. We bowled pretty fast. I never enjoyed bowling 5-man teams. When I did that, you just have to be ready to bowl, I guess. I don't know. There's no great answer for that, especially if you're playing with people that aren't ready to bowl. I don't know what to tell you. The best you can do is you have to be mentally ready. That's the best you can do. There's nowhere to go, do sprints or anything in a bowling center. That's a very tricky and very legitimate question. I guess I would never sit down too much. I would constantly be walking around when I bowled, seeing how somebody else is bowling, trying to keep my legs moving as much as I possibly can. If you sit too long, that will be an issue.
What is a common problem when missing left? Asking for a friend.
Usually missing left of your target means where you're sliding or you're aiming is too close to each other. I'm a big believer in knowing your numbers, so where I slide to where I hit has to make sense, so my ball will go to the timing spot. So if you're sliding on 15, 16, and you're targeting 10, you'll feel like you're missing left. So make sure where you slide to that target. Now, easiest way to do it, the farther right you are, where you slide and where you aim should be closer. And as you move left, that number should get wider and wider and wider. Like my numbers, if I'm standing at 10, I look 5, a 5-board gap. If I'm standing on 35, I'm looking about 21, so 14-board gap. So as I move left, that from the 5-board gap, it gets wider to where I look as I move farther left in the lane.
What would be considered a high rev for a one-handed bowler?
I think anytime you crack 400. 400 on the rev rate's pretty high. 450 is really high. 500 is not very often. Remember, it's not so how high your rev rate is, it's how consistent your rev rate is. So if your rev rate's at 400 and consistent or higher, I would consider that a high rev rate.
Mark, 204 average bowler. My whole life, I've had low ball speed with about 14 miles per hour and about 320 rev rate. Is there a drill for increasing ball speed?
Nope.
Got it.
I'm sorry to say there isn't. I'm not a big believer in drills. I don't think it ever equates to what you do as a bowler, because walking and using your legs is such a major part of how we throw a bowling ball. So the drills tend to minimize the legs and the amount of foot speed you have, and it has nothing to do with your push away, which is very tricky to time everything up. So if your speed's 14 on the monitor, it's really closer to 16 if you read it on Specto. So a 320 rev rate and 16 miles an hour, There's probably a reason why you average 200. It's tricky to try to throw it hard. When people try to throw it hard, they tend to use their shoulder too much. I would just try to keep your speed as consistent as possible.
Got it. All right, last question. I look at the foul line for targeting. Is that okay?
If it works for you, go for it. As somebody who's never been able to do that, Liz Johnson, Wes Mott being the two most well-known people who look at the foul line, I'm sure there are others. As a coach, I need to be able to do everything to help my players. I've spent a lot of time trying to learn to look at the foul line and throw a bowling ball. It freaks me out. I think I'm going to hit myself in the ankle. So personally, I don't teach it just for the fact I can't do it. I'm not saying it's wrong. If it works for you, do it. You can never argue with Liz Johnson's career, arguably the greatest female bowler of all time, her and Marion Ladewig, probably the number one, number two. So obviously there's a reason why she does it. It works unbelievably well for her. Obviously Wes is in the PBA Hall of Fame. It worked great for him. As somebody who can't do it, I have a hard time teaching it. That's why I don't.
All right, Mark. Well, thanks for answering all the questions. Till next time.
Hey guys, on the cleanup crew, always enjoy answering your questions. Hope I helped out right there. Keep sending all the comments in. We'll keep doing this. We'll keep answering all the questions, as many as you send in.
There we go.
All right, what's up, crew? This is Pistol Pete here, and we're back for another Questions with the Coach here with Mark Baker. So today we have 12 questions for you, and so here we go. We're going to jump right into them.
Let's do it.
Question number 1. I'm 6'3" and have hypermobility, which makes my backswing creep higher and higher without me feeling it. I have plenty of ball speed and revs to match, and know how to adjust either up or down depending on conditions. Ideal backswing is about shoulder height, but when it creeps upward, I tend to pull the arm in front, hit high, and it messes with my timing. I've had the local PSO shorten my grip, which eases the strain on my fingers, but what can I do to keep the backswing in check?
So the way you want to look at something like that is that the rhythm of your footwork. So let's say you take 5 steps. You want to make sure the rhythm of your footwork matches the rhythm of your swing. So if your footwork's like 1, 2, 3, 4 slide, say, there's all kinds of great bowlers that do that. Dave Houston back in the day, my day had great rhythm. Tommy Jones, 1, 2, 3, 4 slide. Chris Barnes, 1, 2, 3, 4 slide. If the rhythm of your footwork and your rhythm of your swing match, that's why I'm such a big proponent of staying tall in the beginning. So if you're very tall and you stay tall and you have a smooth swing going back, the rhythm of your swing and the rhythm of your feet will address the height of your backswing. The reason why your swing gets so high, even though you have hypermobility and you're tall, if you get quick early and you pull it up, your swing just keeps going. So your slide's starting to go forward, but the ball's too up here. So you have late timing. So really work on the rhythm of your feet and match the rhythm of your swing. That'll take care of a lot of those problems.
Now this next one is actually less of a question and more of just a comment somebody had that they really wanted me to tell you. So this is from Fish and Bowling on Reddit, and they said, I don't have a question, but I've got one of Mark's son's bowling balls that Barry Asher gave to me when I visited Southern California, and I really wanted you to tell him thank you for me. So from Fish and Bowling, thank you very much for the ball.
That's very cool when, Gage goes up in weight or we try something new. We tend to give all the balls to Barry because we want them to go to good use. So the fact that I found a great home, I can't be happier. I hope there's a lot of strikes left and Gage didn't take them all.
So Mark said in his newest video, The Game's Changed, how he's not a fan of teaching the crossover step anymore. The majority of elite bowlers utilize the crossover step, so I'm curious, why does he not now want to teach this?
Well, I disagree with you. If you look at E.J. Tackett, no crossover. You look at Anthony Simonson, no crossover. You look at Bill O'Neill, they all cross in front. What I mean is they take a 5-step approach. Their second step goes directly in front of their left foot. Because I don't think because I'm a big believer now, your third step should be the crossover step. That's the step that goes a little bit left. I talk about that quite a bit in my video because that allows your pivot step to go straight and drop inside your head. So that way when you look, there's no body part in the way of your downswing. I think the second step should be tall. I think it should be directly into your head. And your third step should be more the crossover step, allowing your pivot step to just go straight in front. So that way there's nothing in the way of your downswing. That's why I do it. I think if your second step catches the weight of your head, it stabilizes your shoulder, and that causes a free swing. I think when people have too big of a crossover, their third step either goes dead left or comes around back in front. Then they have a hard time for their pivot step to go in the proper place. I do extensively talk about that with Prather, Daniel McEwen, and Dave Houston on my video. And those are my examples that don't have it. Like I said, I can name quite a few of the pros that don't. They kind of cross in front, not completely cross over.
I was just watching the shorts and I saw one about breaking down the lanes correctly. This is kind of a multi-part question here. Staying more right in practice before moving left. Mark also talked about that in camp. In a tournament environment where you're moving pairs each game over 4 to 8 games, does this still apply? Should you not care about how you mess up the lanes for the people behind you? Is it better to try to create hold for them, or what advice do you have in regards to breaking down the lanes when you only have one control for one game and you're moving?
So I made a living as throwing a bowling ball for a lot of years. I didn't really care what I did for the other guy. Last time I looked on the entry fee, it didn't say anything on there about me making lanes better for the other guy. So if you've only got one game, make it as good for you as possible. And obviously when you move pairs, you're going to do your best with whatever's out there. But I would never worry about my competition too much. You paid an entry fee, do your very best to knock down the most pins possible. On the other side of that, if you have no ball reaction, the person on that's bowling with you, they're not going to change how they're playing lanes, so you have a better ball reaction. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Do your job, knock down the most pins possible, and then adjust when you get to the next pair.
Okay. And then the second part of this question would be, also, what are any key things you would suggest to get locked in on a new pair right away if you haven't had time to see what line people were playing or what equipment they were using?
Well, obviously, if you bowled a pretty good game before that, you're going to try it pretty close to that. And that's where a lot of experience comes in, and having an idea where your ball is going down lane. You make your 2 best shots on the first 2 shots on each lane, and then you have to adjust. I always thought the best part about bowling was going to a pair where the lanes were messed up. One lane hook was tighter, one lane hooked more. Typically, bowlers tend to complain a lot when that happens. Oh, this happened, that happened. Being a jock, that's just how sports works. So when people would complain, I would go to those pairs and I would try to just figure it out faster. You have to expect every pair to be different. You have to expect every pair to be backwards. So if you have no expectations and you're very open-minded, it makes adjusting much easier. Don't ever have any preconceived ideas. Let your ball be your guide. More importantly, watch the people on your pair. If they're playing lanes like you, obviously that gives you information. But always have an open mind, and you really, really want to not ever remember how you played them the day before, because lanes are never the same. They always change. I have one lane here at the training center. I'm in charge of putting the oil in. I put the cleaner in. I run the machine. They're almost different every day. It's gotten real hot here in Southern California, so now my lanes are playing really, really tight in the back ends for some reason. You would think they'd hook more. They're actually, the oil's staying in the lane longer. I do the mix, so lanes change every day. I do one lane, and it's different every day. Have an open mind. Let your ball be your guide.
So our next question is, does the Baker box work if you're using a plastic ball like a T-zone?
That is an excellent question that I've never thought about. I would think the Baker box would have to move slightly to the left. So 5, 6, 7, 8 would probably have to go. That was more like when I bowled on tour. My first couple of shows I made on TV were throwing yellow dots. And I would imagine our zone back then was more like 8, 9, 10, 11. For one, T-zones don't have much of a core. So the ball's not going to bounce off 5 unless the lanes you're bowling on are just unbelievably dry. So as a general rule, if we had to go back to plastic, I would probably have to move the Baker box to the left if you're right-handed. Probably 2 boards. So instead of 5, 6, 7, 8, I think it'd be more like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
So how does one achieve a really free and easy swing like Mike Fagan and Pete Weber? I tend to pull up on my swing to have a higher backswing, which creates inconsistencies.
Well, Pete probably has one of the greatest swings in history of our sport, and Pete has some of the greatest rhythm with his footwork. I talked about that earlier. Pete's footwork allows his swing to be really smooth. Pete stays real tall. He takes 6 steps in his first 3 steps, so he's stabilizing that shoulder on the push away. The ball swings up. He walks by it. I think it has all to do with your footwork. You know, the rhythm of Pete would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slide. If you look at his swing speed and his foot speed, they've always matched up unbelievably. That's probably in the last 45 years, it's either P. Weber or Parker Bone with the two best swings and balance. So either one, great rhythm, great swing. I think they both stay tall quite a bit through their push away and their downswing. So that when you drop down that second step, that's what causes the ball to get pulled up. They don't drop down, they walk by it, their balls swing up, their hips drop at the same time, and they obviously their results are pretty good.
So I switched from one-handed to two-handed. As a one-hander, I found it very easy to change my axis rotation depending on the way the lane was playing. As a two-hander, I can come straight up the back of the ball and throw completely flat straight, or I come all the way around the ball. I can't find any in between with real consistency. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, it's always about where you add the rotation. So that's very unusual that you can get around a lot as a two-hander. That means you're using your shoulder quite a bit. If you look at the videos, I did the two-handed video, the game's changed, both Belmonte and Simonson. Their thumb, when they throw the ball, their hand barely rotates very much at all. So they get that form going through their target and they add the rotation second. So to me, it's very critical where you turn the ball. So to me, for two-handed, it always comes down to timing. And the Belmo logo being the timing spot that I measure, your left arm, when your slide foot gets flat in front of your head. If you get to the timing spot and you have better timing, that'll allow you to turn the ball later. And when you turn the ball later, you won't have to turn it as much to get that shape you're looking for.
How can you help someone who can't get to the foul line? I tried walking back from the foul line with a 4-step approach, but I'm still end up a foot away from the foul line.
See, that doesn't matter. It depends where your ball lands. So again, if we go to the videos I just produced, one of the senior was Dave Houston. He finishes a good 2 or 3 feet behind the foul line. So it's for Svensson. But they have great trajectory. They don't have massive knee bend. They get the ball on the lane. If you're 1 foot behind the foul line, but your ball is landing 2 to 3 feet on the lane, then it's not an issue. So all you have to do is just make sure where's your ball landing before I'd make a change. Now, if your ball's landing before the foul line on the approach, that's an issue. You're gonna have to decrease your knee bend, add the rotation later, and increase your loft.
How is cupping the ball supposed to feel, especially on the downswing and at the bottom of the swing? Some people tell me the pressure is on the wrist, some say it's a pressure from the thumb muscle, and some say there's no pressure from manipulating the ball inertia to get under it. What feeling should I be looking for in terms of understanding what my body is doing to improve my release?
That is a very tricky question. I bowled on tour and I cut my wrist a ton. I never felt it anywhere. The ball just rolled up on my wrist and I felt the ball in my palm. I get what you're doing. So the ball is in my palm and I rolled it off my hand. Obviously, if I look at old videos, my elbow bent pretty good and I had a cup wrist. I've never really taught much of that. It's a very tricky thing. It would be the last thing I would work on with somebody after balance and timing and consistency and accuracy. So it's more about how, I can't really show it. It's more about how you load your elbow up. If your elbow loads up, then your wrist gets cupped for free. If your arm is straight and you cup your wrist, the only person who was really effective at that was Mark Roth, and he was one of a kind. So the key to cupping your wrist is on the downswing. When the ball is on its side down, you bend your elbow a little bit. That should roll the ball up in your hand, and then just roll it off your hand. I'm not a big believer in trying to feel it cupped because I don't think that makes releases very consistent. I myself, never at my ball, I cupped my wrist pretty hard. Never thought about it my entire life. It just kind of did it. So I'm not really sure how to teach that.
For two-handers, are you supposed to keep the trailing leg low to the ground like most one-handers, or is it okay to kick up high like Packy does?
I think kicking it up's better. If you look at Simonson and Belmonte, the two best, both their back legs are off the ground. But the key is, I don't care how high your back leg goes, as long as your back knee isn't higher than your front knee at release. Because if your back knee gets too high, then your head goes down, your shoulder goes forward, and you come around it. So does your back foot stay in the ground? No, your back foot can come off the ground. Both Belmonte and Simonson does it. Obviously, you just mentioned Packy. But their back knee never goes higher than their front knee. That way it allows them to stay stable with their upper body.
What is your opinion on knee bend versus no knee bend as a two-hander?
I think you need some knee flex. I'm not a big believer in knee bend. Knee bend tends to create a lot of early roll and slow ball speed. So I understand Simo gets pretty low to the ground. Remember, Simon also starts low to the ground. He's not overly tall. So a guy like Jason has like the perfect amount of knee bend. Chris Barnes has middle knee bend. EJ Tackett, Bill O'Neill. Knee bend was taught in my generation, the 70s and the 80s, because the balls didn't have big cores. They had 3-ounce hockey pucks. Now the cores are 5 pounds. So you want your ball to be controlled down lane where it hooks. If you have excessive knee bend in the beginning, I think it makes your ball roll early and the core read the wrong place. I'm a big believer in knee flex. I'm not a big believer in a lot of knee bend. As a two-hander, I would watch Mr. Belmonte. That's about the perfect amount of knee bend. His ball gets in the lane pretty damn smooth. It's worked out okay for him.
All right, and then this is our final question. So it's another two-hand question. I'm a two-hand righty bowler, and I find it really hard to hit my target when throwing straight up the back of the ball, especially for left side spares. Any tips on how to position my body so I stop missing my target so much?
So the key is your breastplate. You're having two hands on your swing and you're swinging it off your shoulders. Your breastplate determines where your hands go. So if your breastplate is aiming at your target down lane, your hands will follow. So the key to that is having good timing. Again, my instructional video, the game's changed, the two-handed. I spend a lot of time talking about this. The key is the timing spot. If you're in time, you're using your right leg as a right-hander, as your power source. If your timing is early as a two-hander, the only available power source is your shoulder. So you pull the ball down with your shoulder, now your breastplate will be way left of where you're trying to throw it. So you'll miss dead right or you'll pull it across the front. The key to this is being in time, so your shoulders aren't the power source, so your upper body stays quiet. Then it's a swing, whether it's one-handed or two-handed. But you watch the best bowlers, their breastplate never leaves the object pin. That way your hands can just roll right at the target.
All right, perfect. Well, that is all our questions. Thank you very much for that. Crew, as always, we always appreciate Mark's time, so do us a favor, go back, check out his videos. The Game Has Changed videos, they're fantastic. One hand has an edition, there's a two-hand edition, and they'll definitely teach you a lot of the specifics we see come up time and time again in the questions. So other than that, please like, subscribe. Mark, you got anything you want to say to everybody?
Hey, I really enjoy the questions. I'm really liking these segments. Please keep sending them in. You guys, all your questions matter because it always applies to you. I'm an old guy, I'm a coach. It's your field, you're the one throwing it. So don't think your questions aren't good. All these questions are great because they relate to you individually. I'm not trying to do a coaching class. I'm really trying to be as specific as I can to each individual question because I want everybody to enjoy this game. I've made a living at it for 45 years. Bowling's been great to me. My job is to help as many people as possible. So please, no matter how you think your question is going to come out, just ask it. I will do my very best to help answer it. And then we'll keep going from there. I do enjoy this segment. I really appreciate you guys liking and all the comments you send in.
All right, guys, we'll see you in the next video. What's up, crew? We're back with another video. We're here with more questions live from Westpac for Mark. These are some of your questions. We took them all off of YouTube. So if you have any more, feel free to ask in the comments and we'll see if we can get them answered. So Mark, how you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. Good to be back on the Cleanup Crew YouTube video channel. Let's see what we can do today.
Sounds good. All right, the first question. Any tips for keeping my head still during the delivery as a two-hander? As my head tends to move to my left, I'm a righty, on the downswing right after the ball passes by my hips. I have a feeling it may be due to me using my shoulders to throw the ball. And if that's the case, is there a tip for me to correct that?
Yeah, that's actually, your self-analysis is pretty good. When I did my two-hand instructional video, this is one of the main things we talked about. So this is pretty much going to be timing. If you're throwing the ball with your shoulders, that means your shoulders are your power source, not your lower body. That always comes back to timing. When your slide foot gets flat in front of your head, your swing should be parallel. The easiest way to do that is to look more like how Jason Belmonte starts. He stays fairly tall to the beginning of his approach. He creates a real swing set with his arms, allows his body to get ahead of his swing. If you're in time, your right leg will be your power source. Your shoulders be quiet. If your shoulders move, your head's got to move with it. So your self-analysis was very good.
I bowl one hand, no thumb with a 4-step approach. I've watched videos of when to start your swing. They start on the first crossover step. Is this a good place to start my swing, or should I start on the second or third step?
First off, I would get rid of your crossover step. I'm not a big believer in crossover steps. Think about walking. It's how you walk down the street. If the light turned green, you wouldn't put a crossover step trying to cross the street. I like cross in front. Your first step should go directly in front of it so it stabilizes your weight of your head, the weight of your head. For people with no thumb on the ball, you're always going to have a short backswing. So if anything, I would delay your push away. Maybe at the end of your first step. When your first step is done, then push it out. Because your swing is so short, because you have no thumb on the ball, it'll fall off. You've got to get your body ahead of your swing. Backswings tend to be short. Lower body's where the power comes from. I would delay that, not that crossover, that cross in front step. I would push the ball out at the end of your first step, then make sure your feet go. And when in doubt, go watch a video of Tom Doherty.
Where, when, and how long should my eyes be on the target area of the arrows? When should I look up as I follow through to the strike area? Question mark. I'm right-handed.
That's a good one. You know, I looked at the arrows my entire bowling career, and I can tell you I never saw my ball hit the target. My eyes would always move to 30 feet. That's kind of what I did. I don't find a hard and fast rule. I just want your head to stay quiet through the bottom of your swing. So do you necessarily have to see your ball roll over the arrows? It's probably a good thing. I could always tell instinctively I hit my target, I missed a little bit in, or I missed quite a bit inside my target. Those are my 3 shots. So my eyes always went to 30 feet, then they went to the pins. Some people are at the arrows, some see the break point. There is no set spot for your eyes, but your head does need to remain still. And where you throw the ball, you've got to get feedback to know whether you hit your intended target or not.
Is ball weight the main reason why I can't make my follow through high enough, or at least make it to head level? It seems my swing ends after I release the ball.
That's more to do with your body balance. Remember this, there's 2 things at play when you throw a bowling ball. How your body functions, and there's throwing a bowling ball. Here's why pros look so easy, and it looks so effortless for the pros. They maximize how their body functions while they happen to be bowling. Most amateurs are bowling in spite of how their body functions. So if your chin doesn't go past your knee, you don't get too low in your knee bend, and your head doesn't get too far forward, it's very easy for me to get my arm to go to the top. If I'm sitting in this chair and my head goes down, my arm can only go to here. So you're telling me probably that you're too far forward and your head's too low. That's a body function. My arm literally won't go up. If I get down, I get my chin back on top of my kneecap, I can get a follow through to the top of my swing, and that's what I see. Make sure your body functions correctly while you're throwing a bowling ball, then you'll be in better balance and hit the target more often.
Any tips for converting from a 4-step to a 5-step approach?
I would not do that. It's very, very tricky to go from even to odd. You've seen a lot of bowlers take 6 steps. What I would do, I would go from 4 steps and go over to 6 steps. Patrick Allen, Pete Weber, Norm Duke, you'd be in good company. 3 first ballot Hall of Famers right there. So why? Because you're used to starting with your right foot if you're right-handed on 4 steps. So if you go from 4 to 6, you're just going to take 2 steps, and then for momentum, rhythm, and then you start your approach, putting the ball in your swing normally in your 3rd step of a 6-step approach. So I would not go from 4 to 5, I would go from 4 to 6.
Do athletes who plant move the air forward as efficiently as those who slide?
That's a very good question. I don't get enough people who plant to really answer that question. The problem with people who plant, they tend to pull down. So their heel hits and then they pull their swing down. So invariably they're pulling their shoulder down. There are some examples that have done it really good. Brad Angelo does it really well. Shannon Pulowski does it very well. Michael Haugen does it very well. I think those are the 3 best planters I know of, and they all get the air to move forward. All have had great careers. You know, Brad Angelo makes a show just about every week on the PBA 50. Shannon Pulowski's in the running for the Ladies Player of the Year. So there is some evidence out there they do it. But be careful, if you pull down too hard with that shoulder and you move the air down, your thumb's going to come around a little bit early. You're going to have a hard time staying behind the ball.
As a 2-handed bowler, I see from videos of myself that the weight of the ball transfers over to my left hand. Hence, I'm not as under the ball as I should be just before the release, as I feel my left hand stays on the ball too long. Do you have any tips to combat this?
That is something I would have to see. You would have to take a virtual lesson and send that in to me. I've never really seen that too much. You're saying that the ball from your right hand goes into your left hand. I would have to see that in a video. So I would advise taking a virtual lesson with me and show me that. Then I would have a much better answer. Right now, because I don't run into that scenario very often, I would just be guessing, and I prefer not to do that.
What are your thoughts on a two-handed straight backswing like Kyle Troop versus a bent arm backswing like Belmo? Are there benefits to either, or do you have one that you recommend?
I would recommend the one that you can do the easiest. Obviously, there's been great success. I mean, obviously, Jason Belmonte needs no introduction. He's the best of all time at it. Kyle seems to be probably the best bowler on TV the last 4 or 5 years. So obviously, it works for Kyle. He's Hall of Fame eligible, 10 titles and some majors. He won the U.S. Open. Obviously, it's effective that way also. Most times, there isn't a right way or a wrong way when it comes to something like that. It comes down to which one can you do the easiest and the most often. So that's what I would stay with.
Mark, do you have any plans on releasing a part 2 of Changing the Game?
As it stands right now, maybe. We're trying to get all the footage together. We did a sports shot one for the Baker box using Mr. Belmonte, Simonson, Daniel McEwen, and Prather. Came out pretty good. We're just trying to figure out how the editing all goes, how the talking goes. It's a very complicated process to put something together you're going to release and charge money for. So we're looking into it. We're hoping to come up with that. But for what we did, the first 2 videos, the physical game one-handed and the physical game two-handed, I'm not sure I would do anything more with that. If it'd be anything, it would be more of a sports shot, how to use the Baker box.
This is actually our last one. I take a 5-step approach. My problem is keeping my 4th power step from going out to the right and causing me to drift right. I'm a right-handed bowler. Is there a way I can correct this issue?
Yes, that is usually caused by your 3rd step. So that's why I'm a big believer of no crossover in your first 2. First step straight, second step in front of it. The key is the 3rd step. The 3rd step's got to go 3, 4, maybe 5 boards left of your 2nd step. That gives your 4th step somewhere to go. If your 2nd step has a big crossover, then your 3rd step comes back in front of 2. Your 4th step has nowhere to go but the right. Then you're going to come over your shoulder, and you're not going to be able to play inside very well. So to me, to get your pivot step inside your head, not to go to the right, first 2 steps straight, a little bit more left. With the 3rd step, that allows your pivot step to drop in and you slide straight. And that is something I talk about quite a bit in my instructional videos, both for the one-hander and two-hander, the Game Change video series, which you can find on my website, markbakerbowling.com.
That'll really wrap it up for us. So, Mark, you got anything you want to tell everybody?
Everybody, I really enjoy your questions. Keep throwing them at me. I really enjoy having to think on my feet like this real fast. Just as much description as you can put in there, I will do my very best. And like I said, if I can't answer it, the best way to do it is take a virtual lesson. Again, you go to markbakerbowling.com, you click on the virtual lesson link, just follow all the prompts. And since I've been doing all the YouTube videos with the cleanup crew, the virtual lessons have definitely become more. And this is worldwide. Singapore, New Zealand, New York, New York, New York, New York, the New York bowlers. I love you guys. A lot of Illinois, a lot of Texas, a lot of Florida. I've been very popular in Malaysia lately. So obviously everybody in the world are watching these videos. I really do hope you enjoy them.
And thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time.
So we're back with another series of questions for your favorite coach, Mark Baker. Mark, how you doing today?
Doing great.
All right, so we got some questions from the guys and gals. First question, how important is keeping the ball near your feet at release? I always had a problem keeping it close. I usually lay the ball down 10 to 12 boards from where my slide foot stops.
Yeah, that might be a little bit of a problem. You don't have to, obviously the closer the better. As long as you're within 2 or 3 inches on a consistent basis, it's okay. If it gets more than 6, 7, 8 inches away from your ankle, it's not wrong, it just makes it very hard to be accurate.
That makes sense. Second question. What does it mean when you roll the ball and the ball is rolling over your finger holes? Is that a bad release?
Usually that means you turn it too early. So your hand turns down early, and then you try to stay behind it by flipping it back up. So the ball tends to roll up over your finger holes. So try to just make sure you turn the ball later. There's only 2 places you can turn a ball, at your heel or at the end of your toe. Obviously the end of your toe is the right place. Try to keep the flat part of your forearm going forward. Add the rotation later as you can. Usually you'll get off the finger holes if you do that.
Definitely just learned a little bit there. Third question, I know the answer to this. Where are you based out of?
I am in Orange County, California. The Westpac Training Center is here in Orange. I am about 5 minutes from Disneyland and 2 minutes from where the Ducks play and the California Angels.
Next question. When it comes to slowing down your approach, is it simply just walking slower during your walk-up?
I would actually move up. trying to walk slower from your normal starting point tends to make your arm decelerate. That takes away all the purpose of throwing it slower. You want to throw it slower, you still want to catch it. So you watch the pros, their ability to move up and back on the approach is pretty remarkable. Chris Barnes, I know, can start from the very back or in front of the dots to a 3-step approach. So really work on not trying to throw it slower by slowing down your body. Move up 6 inches, 3 inches, a foot, 2 feet. Every mile an hour you're trying to slow it down, move up 6 more inches. That way the gears stay the same, meaning your lower body and your swing stay in the same timing. So that way you're not decelerating your arm at the moment of release.
So does that mean to speed it up, you would possibly move
I'm not
back?
a big believer on moving back because if you move back too far, you tend to get your foot too far from your pivot step, too far from the foul line, and that causes a lunge, your head going down, thumb coming over the top. So you do throw it harder, but your ball won't hook very much.
Perfect. What does moving the air forward mean? Been bowling league for 10 years and I've never heard that before until you said it.
Well, thank you. I did invent it. So another way to look at it, there's 3 ways to move the air when you throw a bowling ball. You can move the air forward, which is what everybody wants to do, or you can move the air down, or you can move the air up. Here's the easiest answer. When you get to the timing spot, when your left slide foot is in front of your head and your swing's parallel, there's a distance between your chin and your kneecap. If that distance stays the same, that's basically moving the air forward, and that's how you create a flat spot. If at that point from the timing spot to release, you move your head down, moving the air down, your hand will go on top of the ball. Why? The ball stays in its arc. So if you're moving your air forward, that distance stays the same, your hand will get in a very specific spot every time. If you move your head up, your hand will rotate to the very top of the ball, you throw it from the top, and you come over the top and you spin it. So moving the air forward is about keeping your chin and your knee, that distance pretty much equal, all the way to the bottom of your swing, and that creates a flat spot and a very consistent release and great balance.
Reminds me of when you said you get a chance to wait on it at that point. Yeah. Mark, I have seen many videos of the cleanup crew that you reference a quiet left foot for a right-hander. Can you give more details as to what that means? Any tips for keeping your foot quiet? And thanks for all the great videos.
Do appreciate the compliment. So keeping your left foot quiet just means your head's not going forward. So if your left foot's quiet, that means you're in balance. That typically means you didn't throw the ball with your shoulder, it was a swing. Once there's a lot of downforce with your shoulder, that tends to wiggle your left foot and your head moves. So if it's a real swing, you're in time, and your head stays quiet, your left foot won't move much. You'll find your best shots are when you control your head and your left foot stays stable.
Next question, what is a Sarge Easter grip? And is there any better benefit to it versus standard one-hand thumb-in grip?
Now, I've never thrown a Sarge Easter. Robert Smith, Mike Devaney, and I think Michael Fagan are the 3 that come to my mind that have used a Sarge Easter. That's where your ring finger is a conventional and your middle finger is a fingertip. I think that takes, the guys that have it, those guys all have pretty high rev rates and they all like to hook it. So I think that gives them more control. I personally never had enough hook, so I never had to worry about a Sarge Easter. I was trying to get that damn thing to hook as best I could. I was using everything I had. But no, the Sarge Easter, this one's conventional, this one's fingertip, supposedly gives you more control. When all 3 of those guys went to it, I didn't notice that their balls hooked any less. Especially Robert Smith. Well, all 3 of them, Devaney, Smith, and Fagan, not known for throwing the ball straight.
Next question. What is good balance? Sometimes I feel I fall off the shot, yet I see a recording and my right foot only goes back to the ground when the ball passes the arrows. Should I work on keeping it off the ground until the ball reaches through the pins, or will that just happen from time to time?
I'm a big believer there's falling off and there's stepping off. So stepping off, you'd have like Walter Ray Williams, Mark Roth, and Dick Weber. The ball's past the arrows, it's getting towards a break point, and they step to the right. I don't consider that falling off. I consider falling off is when you're throwing the ball and you can't complete your fall through, and then you step to the right. That will affect your shot. If you can get your fall through to the top, the ball goes past the arrows, I don't care if you do a backflip by then, because then you have no influence on the ball. But in the middle of your fall through, you're stepping to the right, you got to work on your timing and your balance.
Nice. Next question. What's the key to helping keep my right foot straight at the foul line? I intend to move it sideways after my release. I tend to move it sideways after my release.
So if that's your right foot, that means you're left-handed. So in today's game, when everybody hooks the ball quite a bit, even if your slide foot's about 10 to 15 to 20 degrees open, or closed, I guess that way, facing, if you're left-handed, your right foot's facing the 7-pin. I don't have a problem with that. It's when your foot is 180, where it's parallel, then your belt buckle and your breastplate aren't facing your down lane target. So the easiest way to control that, if you can control your belt buckle and your breastplate, your foot tends to follow. If your shoulders and your hips blow wide open, your foot tends to follow that. So try to keep your hips in line with your break point a little longer. That should make your foot a little more consistent.
Nice. Next question. This one's a little bit longer. I have a question outside of moving closer to the foul line. Which is the best way to slow ball speed down? I can bowl all areas of the lane, but sometimes when playing on a short pattern that is short and needing to use urethane, I have a tendency to throw the ball 18 to 20 miles an hour, targeting 10 through 5 depending on the pattern. I've been working on reducing the ball speed and been able to get it to lower 17-ish, but I feel it's still too fast for the shot. After 2 to 3 games on the pattern, I'm able to move left and throw reactive through the 20, 15. My ball speed is now 15 and a half to 16 and a half. I also tend to loft more than most people when moving left as well.
So back to the original question, throwing it harder, put more service on your ball. It'll slow your ball down faster. So just keep putting more service till it's not 20 miles an hour. It'll start up, and then you can get closer, obviously, with the numbers you just gave me when you get to move left, when you get to see what you want to see, you bowl better. Every bowler's that way. We don't like where we don't like, and we like where we do like. So when you get to the part of the lane you like, you tend to throw it better. When I had to play very, very far right, I really wasn't very good at that. I didn't do it very exceptionally well, but I learned to do things to get by, which I would have put a lot of service on my ball. Maybe you'll make that experience of playing out on a short pattern just one game, and then you'll get to shift left and get to more of your A game. I think that's the easiest way to do it.
Perfect. I am a one-handed right-hander, and on my follow-through, my arm tends to go up and out right a little on the post instead of straight in front. My coach wants me to have my elbow pointing more in front. Is this something normal, and if so, how can I fix it?
Yeah, I mean, that's,
go ahead.
if you look at the best bowlers, they tend to have their elbow in front. You know, Jason Belmonte's arm's a little bit out to the right. It doesn't seem to affect him too much at the pay window. So there's also that. I wouldn't want to see it like this. I don't want to see the palm facing the pins and your arms like 90 degrees, your elbow's facing the right wall. I mean, this is probably pretty much through the middle of the face, the new follow-throughs. This is how I followed through back in the day. So I mean, anywhere in there is pretty good. The key is, I'm not so concerned about your follow-through. I would be more concerned about how often do you hit your target. If you hit your target a lot in the front and your ball hooks in the right place in the back, I really wouldn't care what your follow-through looks like.
That's the name of the game. Next question, does Mark Baker have the spare equivalent to the Baker box for shooting at spares straight? Like stand 30, throw over center arrow to pick up 10 pins, stand 25, throw over third arrow, etc. I can really build a dependable, I can really build a dependable system this way.
So if you watch me when I bowled on tour in my heyday, you would have never asked that question. I was never the best spare shooter on tour. But spares are trial and error. At my camp, we give you the Doug Kent style, I give you the Dave Husted style, the Robin Romeo style, my style. The key to having a good spare game is having your own system. There is no right, there is no wrong. If you want to throw all plastic at your right side spares and hook your left side spares, great. If you're only bowling on sport shots, I would recommend just using a plastic ball for everything. So Robin Romeo tends to use urethane. We all have our way of doing it. I tend to adjust off my strike line, so I'm constantly moving. There is no right way or wrong way, but the best bowlers have a system that they believe in and they practice it. So have your own system. There is no Baker box for spares. I think Norm Duke has said it best. When you're lined up correctly and you let go, the pin gets in the way of your ball as you make it.
I like that. And that's funny, I feel like the last few months started to realize those patterns of I stand here typically on my 10 pin, I stand here typically on my 7 pin. If I hit that mark, it's gonna do the same thing every time. So
accuracy's accuracy.
Yeah, it's just, find your own system. That's really the best answer. Next question. This is the final one. Should I be aiming for one spot in the lane, or should I be moving dots as well as my aim point for each shot?
Well, my theory is if I move my feet, I move my eyes.
Okay.
I never move my feet and I don't move my target. Good rule of thumb, once you get past like 11, 12 on the lane, start moving your feet left. A lot of people, a 2-to-1 ratio, a 3-to-2 ratio. For every 2 boards, I move my feet, move my eyes 1. I believe in the Baker box wholeheartedly down lane. Now, if I'm playing 11 and I move right, I tend to move my feet and my eyes the same amount. I'm throwing the ball up the lane, and my break point's down here. Now as I move left, but the break point doesn't move, I move my feet twice as much. I'm trying to get to that same spot down lane. An easier way to answer that, if I'm standing on 15, I'm looking at 7 or 8. So my eyes and my feet are about 7 boards different. If I'm standing on 30, I'm looking at 16 or 17. So now my feet are 13, 14 boards difference.
Yeah.
So as you can see, the farther I'm right, where I stand and where I look are closer together, and the farther I move left, where I stand and where I look get farther apart, because I'm pretty much trying to get them to the same spot down lane.
So I have a piggyback question off of that. That goes, I think, hand in hand with also, you have to know your drift and miss at that point too, or else you're gonna be off on those numbers, right?
That would definitely help. What Rich means on your drift and miss, an easy way to answer this question, mine is 4 and 3. That means I drift 4 boards left where I start, and I miss my target by 3 boards where I look. So if I want to slide on 20 and I want to hit 10, I stand on 16 and I look at 7. I've never hit my target my entire life. If you ask Days at Ozio, I never hit my target even when I was on trying in my entire life. So it goes what I was saying. My ball tended up in the 1-3 quite a bit, so it was all right. But yeah, knowing your drift and miss, if you're lining up off somebody else and you see where they're sliding and you know your numbers, it makes it very, very easy to slide where they slide, or if you see where they hit, it makes it easier to hit. In my case, on the Pro Bowlers Tour back in the 80s, I tend to fall, I never bowled in the same squad as Marshall Holman, so I tend to watch Marshall pretty much every week. Wherever he was sliding the last game and hitting, that's exactly where I started. He was sliding on 25, hitting 13. I stood on 21, looked 10. I know it used to irritate Marshall. He told me to quit watching, and I had the same answer every week. If you quit leading the tournament, I'll quit watching you bowl.
So pay attention to the good bowlers, guys.
Marshall made a lot of finals. I watch Marshall a lot.
Okay, thank you so much, Mark. Anything you want to leave with our viewers that love your questions so much?
Just keep sending the questions in. Remember this, the questions are perfect because they apply to you. I give a lot of lessons. There's 2 things you're looking for when you bowl. You're looking for confidence and you're looking to be calm. Some people need the questions answered to calm down their brain so when they stand on the approach, they're confident. I was an ex-jock, so I just lived on confidence. So once I was confident in what I was doing, then my brain got calm. You just got to find out which way your brain works. You need the questions answered to be calm, to build your confidence, or need your confidence to calm your brain down to be calm. Figure out which way works for you, and I guarantee you'll like bowling a lot more.
Amen to that. That's the gospel from the man himself. Thank you so much, Mark. We appreciate you as always. MarkBakerBowling.com. Cleanup crew, we are out.
What's up, crew? We're here with Mark Baker for another video answering your questions from the comments. So today we have 9 questions. These are straight from the YouTube comments. So as always, thank you for your time, Mark, and let's go ahead and knock some of these out.
Let's do it.
Number 1, how do you relax your hand during release? Or how do you try to relax your swing without forcing it? I feel like I tense up every time I try.
So to me, that's all about grip pressure. So there's all kinds of different feels in grip pressure, whether you're holding a bird. My grip pressure is about 10 to 15% when I hold a bowling ball, when I did bowl, and when I coach. You want to make sure your hands can't be tight. If you think about it this way, when you walk down the street, because bowling is about walking up and letting go of a ball. So when you walk and have great rhythm, your hands you'd never tighten your hands up to walk. So your hands should be super loose. So try to hold the ball so it doesn't come off, but the less grip pressure you have and you still control the ball, that'll take some way those answers. But if you get that grip pressure too tight, it's very hard to get that thumb to clear and your hand to get around it if you're holding onto it too tight. Try to keep the grip pressure to a minimum, get your tempo of your legs better, that'll take care of your hand.
Number 2, I'm a 2-handed bowler. Recently I've been hopping during my release. Is this a timing issue? Everyone keeps telling me I have to get the ball behind my back also. Is this true?
Okay, the ball would never go behind your back as a 2-hander. The ball, your arm, 2 hands are touching the ball and your arm's in a swing so you would get sideways. So your hands would go straight back, never behind you. The hopping issue is your head. So what hopping is caused by is being out of balance. So that probably is a timing issue. Almost every 2-hander I start coaching is early. So if your timing is early, what happens is your head gets out in front of your knee. So when you go to deliver it, there's an early weight transfer to your left leg, your head gets in front of your left knee, so all your weight's in front, you throw the ball, but your body is out of balance. The hop, if you film yourself in the back, you'll notice that when you hop, if you're right-handed, your left foot is going directly under your head to rebalance yourself. The hop is self-preservation. So yes, timing would be the best way to fix it. The easiest way to figure out what timing is the two-hander. That two-handed instructional video I did with Jason Momani and Anthony Simonson, it's doing very well. Go to markbakerbowling.com, scroll down, buy the two-handed instructional video. The timing and all that is in that video.
Number 3, I'm a righty two-hander with a 5-step approach. What would normally be the cause of double bouncing the ball on the lane? Sometimes I'll start a practice session and do fine with minimal double bounce. Then all of a sudden I start bouncing the ball without feeling like my timing is terrible. Is this bad? And if so, is there an easy way to fix it?
Yes, so you want to stay taller. Bouncing the ball never works because that means the force of the ball is going down more than it's going out, so it's hitting the lane and it's double dribbling. That means your hand's on top of the ball. As a two-hander, that doesn't work because there's no thumb. So invariably, it's either body balance or timing. Like I said in the previous answer, instead of me going through a big giant thing, it's on the video. Jason Momani, Anthony Simonson have the exact same timing. So when they have their timing better, they really can control their head. And when your head stays up, not gets too far low, the farther my head goes down, watch where my hand goes, on top. Once my hand gets a little bit towards the top of the ball two-handed, then you're shoving it down, that's the cause. And probably the reason why that happens, whether one-handed or two-handed, where you start out good and it gets worse, because when you warm up, you're just walking up and letting go. Think about that, you're walking up and letting go. And as people get warmed up, what happens? Now I'm not throwing it good. You literally changed the verb. Walking was important, then you were letting go. Now throwing is important and the walking is no longer part of the equation. So remember, the reason why warming up works so well is because you're walking up, you're not trying so hard, so your legs are doing more work than your arm. Once your arm is doing more work than your legs, nothing good happens.
Number 4, a question, coach. How important is keeping the ball near your feet at release? I've always had a problem keeping it close. I usually lay the ball down 10 to 12 boards from where my slide foot stops.
Yeah, obviously the closer the better to your ankle is what I think you mean. Get the ball closer to your ankle. All that happens, the farther the ball gets away from your ankle, the more you lose power. Because your arm starts getting away, your arm's not strong out, your arm is very strong underneath your shoulder. So without seeing your body, because a lot of times when that happens is people with really broad shoulders. Big guys like me. We have a hard time getting our ball next to our ankle just because we're so big. So if that's an issue, that's one thing. The other thing is, I don't know what your slide is. A lot of people have a good pivot step, but then if you're right-handed and you start sliding 4 or 5 boards left, your swing's in a slot and you're sliding away from your swing. So the ball would be like that close to your ankle to start your slide, but as you slide farther and farther left and the ball doesn't move, you create width so the ball gets farther from your ankle. So then again, that's always caused if your head gets too far forward or your timing's early, that'll cause you to slide away from it, create that gap, and you lose power and accuracy. So try to get that swing closer. The best bet, I can't help you from here, would be to take a virtual lesson.
Number 5, do you have any tips for a planter? I've never been able to slide.
Planting is becoming more and more prevalent in my coaching. I would say I went from probably 10% planters to now 40. I believe the reason I think that happens is a lot of approaches are completely different center to center. Some centers still have wood, they tend to be slippery. Synthetics tend to be stickier. When the weather changes, they get really slippery or really sticky. So if you plant, you kind of make all the approaches the same. I have no problem with planting. People that plant, I measure timing a little different. When you slide, I measure when your left foot gets flat in front of your head, your swing should be parallel. So for timing with a planter, I measure the heel. I think 2 of the best planters of all time are Shannon Pulowski and Michael Haugen. So I base some of my timing issues off those 2 bowlers who've had very, very successful careers as planters.
Number 6, a question for Coach Mark. Does my arm swing need to be shorter if I start to two-hand bowl?
Well, your swing is going to be predicated by the length of your left arm. Both hands are touching the ball. So the length of your swing is really determined by if you're right-handed, how far your left arm goes back. That's why the timing is so important. That's why in my video I talk about making your left arm longer. If both hands are touching it, that left arm gets high enough, then your swing's higher. If that left arm stays short, if you can't get that left shoulder to kind of feel like it's tucking under your chin, If your swing is short two-handed, you're gonna have a very, very hard time with accuracy and generating enough power and being consistent. Because if your swing's short, the power source becomes your shoulders. When it becomes your shoulders, you can miss both left and right. When the power source is more your right leg for a right-hander and your head stays up and you have better timing, that's where the accuracy comes from. Because when you use your legs for the power, then you have a swing. If you have your shoulders for your power, then you have a throw. If you throw the ball, whether one-handed or two-handed, you have two things: an inconsistent release and not very much accuracy. So again, try to make your swing as long as possible with your opposite arm so your timing gets better, so you find more accuracy.
Number 7, I continually miss left when I bowl with no thumb. Is this more of an alignment issue typically, or am I coming over the top of the ball more often?
I would say I'm getting quite a few bowlers since we started doing the YouTube videos, but way more no thumb bowlers. So what happens is, because your thumb isn't in the ball, the height of your backswing is restricted to a certain height. If your hand gets up too high with no thumb, the ball is going to fall off. So invariably, bowlers with no thumb, like Tom Doherty being the best example, backswing's pretty short. So the ability to get your body ahead of your swing, even though your backswing's short because there's no thumb, is imperative to being in time. And the better timing you get, the less you move, the less you miss left. If your timing is early with no thumb in it, you come over the top. So your self-analysis is correct, but it's because of timing. Your hand comes over the top. You tend to miss in, and more importantly, you miss in down lane at the break point. It always comes down to timing, whether it's one-handed or two-handed.
Perfect. And also shout out to Tom Doherty from our channel. We've seen your comments before, so we appreciate you looking out for us. We're big fans.
Thanks, TD.
Number 8, for two-handers, where should the oil track on the ball be? I've heard that it needs to be off the fingers, but I've also heard some people say that as long as the ball is doing what it's supposed to, it really doesn't matter.
That would be the correct answer. If you look at all the professional bowlers and you came to a pro event and you went around the thing, you looked at all the tracks and all the oil rings, there isn't one spot they all end up from. They all throw it slightly different. So again, your premise is correct. If it's not bouncing and rumbling and not hooking, and every time you throw it, your ball does the correct thing at 45 feet at the break point, and your ball makes that strong move where it's supposed to make it, I wouldn't really worry about the oil rings.
And now our 9th and final question, and it's actually about a friend of yours. So, what are your thoughts about the new and upcoming two-handers getting their follow-through to the other side of their head? I'm talking about players like Jesper Svensson and Zach Wilkins, to name some.
Right, because they're so open. Two-handers tend to they got to get their, well, you got a lefty and a righty. Let's go with Zach. Your third step has to go a bit left to clear both arms, so their bodies are more open than a one-hander. So if two-handers followed through like the old school to the right of our head, they would miss so far right or so far left than ever. So most of the good bowlers now tend to follow through their face, or they follow through over their shoulder. The reason being, they're open and their swing comes a little bit over the top to get the ball to go forward, not sideways. So now I'm at the training center. Almost everybody I coach now, I'm trying to get their follow through, one-handed or two-handed, to come up through their face. I would rather your follow through come on the other side than come out over here like the old school. If you follow through to the right, the ball tends to go the other way every time. So much more, because the rotation's added later. People hook the ball so much more than they did in my era. So the follow throughs definitely go more up in front of you like this than they did this. So yes, I agree with what those guys are doing. Obviously, Jesper's on my PBA team league. He's a beast. Love watching Jesper bowl, and his follow through seems to work just fine.
Now, I know we're here at your Camp Bakes in Las Vegas, actually, taking a little bit of time out of your day. Is there anything you got upcoming that you'd like to plug?
Not really. I'm just going back to the Westpac Training Center tomorrow night. Back to doing lessons. My next camp will be sometime in April. Everything else is going pretty good. The tremendous amount of response on the virtual lessons, I appreciate it, keeping me very busy. I love the questions. Let's just make bowling better. Keep firing all the questions in. Talk to you guys later.
And then as always, guys, markbakerbowling.com. Check out the Change in the Game video series. With the questions you guys ask, along with what we give you already, if you pair them up with the video or do a virtual lesson in the video, you're gonna get so much knowledge and feedback instantly that really,
it's just gonna quick start. It's gonna accelerate the learning curve.
Yeah,
hearing it this way is trying to make sense. If I get the virtual lesson or you film yourself and you buy the video and you can start comparing yourself, it's much easier to make changes when it's visual. Oh, because I'm telling you how to do it verbally. So if you can see it with your own two eyes and you can measure yourself against, say, a Jason Belmonte who has unbelievably tremendous balance and he does everything correctly, if you start seeing the differences, it'll be much easier for you to change and start trying to emulate Jason more. Because I do know this, the closer you look to Jason Belmonte, the more you're gonna like bowling. So on the one-handed, I use Chris Prather, Daniel McEwen, Dave Husted. Works out the same thing. When your balance starts emulating Chris Prather and you start finishing in balance at the foul line, you'll notice that the game of bowling gets much easier.
And another thing we'll throw in, because I know we don't mention it often, is in the Changing Game series, there is a seniors video, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and so we get a lot of questions from seniors all the time. I'm back in the game, I'm 70. So that may be something you want to look at, and that's included with either one, I believe?
No, that's the bonus. So what I did is I brought in my best friend, Dave Husted, who was at the time of filming was 63, now he's 64, and I'm 63. But 30-40% of my business is seniors. And the same thing, how do I throw it harder? I want to increase my rev rate. But you're 77 years old. Those things actually aren't happening. So what I did with Dave, I filmed this little 6-7 minute sequence of all the do's and the don'ts for the senior player. If you go to my website, markbakerbowling.com, you scroll down, you'll actually see a picture of Dave and I talking, and you look at the senior section, it's free. I didn't charge anybody. I figured the seniors never get any love, so I did a little bonus section just for you guys. You watch it, and I probably had more response email-wise and text-wise from the senior section than anything I've ever done. So the seniors have liked it. I'm trying to do one thing. I don't want your body to hurt. I want you to bowl more often. I don't want you to get tired. I just want you to keep bowling and enjoy this great game of bowling. So check it out. It's free. It'll definitely help you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. The man, the myth, the legend, Mark Baker.
Thanks, guys.
What's going on, Mark? How are you?
Very good, very good. Getting close to Christmas, and been a very good year. For Mark Baker Bowling.
Well, thanks to our subscribers and people that have been supporting us. It's definitely been a great year for us too.
Very good.
Very excited to be able to ask you some of these questions. A lot of people have been in the comments constantly dropping questions, so it's that time.
Let's see what they got.
It's that time. So first question, what advice would you give for a right-handed two-finger backup bowler? Also, the two fingers, my middle and ring finger, the middle one always seems to be sore or hurts after I throw a bowling ball. Is that due to a bad release?
Which finger hurts?
The middle one.
Yeah, that's because you're throwing a backup ball. So you're turning your, a strike ball, typically how you throw it, your hand rotates it, and that's the finger that hits it. So when you throw a backup ball, this finger comes out last, so that's why that hurts. So a person that hooks it, it's usually your ring finger that hurts. So when you throw a backup ball, that's a reversed action of that. Any advice? Find your favorite left-handed bowler and line up like them. Because you're basically bowling like a left-hander with a right hand. And it's becoming very prevalent in the two-handed world. In Europe, some of the kids that bowl two-handed are quite good at it. I mean, like legit. So it's a thing. So yeah, I mean, usually the people that I teach to throw a backup ball are girls that played softball, especially if they pitched.
Same motion.
Like they their hips come up and their hand goes the other way.
Yeah.
It's like when you throw a baseball, your hand comes over the top to curve it this way. Mm-hmm. Their balls, they go up.
Yeah.
So girls that play a lot of softball that pitched and can hum it, they make very good natural backup bowlers.
Wow, so you hear that out there, ladies. If you played some softball, you might have a future in bowling.
That's the natural motion they've been making all their life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. Number 2. Hello, I'm a left-handed two-handed bowler, and when I finish, my left leg, the leg that swings around my plant foot, makes a black mark on the approach, and I can't figure out how to prevent it. It doesn't mess up the approach, but it's annoying. How do I fix this?
Probably you got to change shoes. I mean, that's all I can think of. So, certain shoes leave marks, certain shoes don't leave marks. I have it here at my training center. I'd say once a week, somebody will come in here and they'll slide, either foot, and that back foot, the way the sole of the foot, there's rubber on it, so you're clearing it so hard, that's what's leaving the mark. It's not really the bowler, it's more of the shoe.
Yeah, I've dealt with that myself too.
Yeah, I see it all the time.
Yeah.
I don't have it happen here very often, but I'd say at least once a month, somebody really, just depending on what shoe they're wearing, because there's so many different brands of shoes.
Exactly. Maybe that's something these brands
It's not,
need to...
I don't think the bowler's doing anything wrong.
I don't think so either. Yeah, okay.
Just make sure if you do leave it, clean it off before you leave. That's all you gotta do.
That's the respectful thing to do out there, guys. Respect your houses. Okay. I bought the two-handed guide and he talked about certain zones to adding rotation. How do you actually do that, as I feel every shot I do has the same rotation except when doing dead straight spares? Do I change my hand position in the beginning to increase or decrease my rotation, or opening or tightening my fingers or something?
So it would always be at release. What you're trying to do is to add rotation later. So yes, one way you can do it, there's like, a couple different ways you can hold your hand. This is the most common, where your pointer finger separates from your fingers and your pinky stays here. If you tuck your pinky, it gets the ball sit up higher. You can add rotation that way. Usually what I talk about when people want to add rotation in the different zones is where your thumb goes at release. So if I'm playing zone 1, I try to get my thumb to go at my middle finger. If I play zone 2, I try to get my thumb to go at my ring finger. If I'm playing left to fourth arrow, I'm really shoving my thumb down on the outside of this finger. So when I'm thinking about where I'm playing 15, that's this finger. When I release it, my thumb is going to the exact same place every time. That's what creates the rotation on a very consistent basis. For me, I would say most bowlers are pretty good at 2 zones. Like myself, I wasn't ever very good at playing zone 1. That was very hard for me to get my ball to go into a rim. I can't throw a backup ball. So everybody tends to have 2 zones they really do well in, is what I find. Some of the tour players are good at all 3.
That is an incredible explanation of that question, because I've never heard it explained as simple. I hope you guys out there really.
Well, it has to be something you can do. Remember, coaching is about me telling you what to do.
Exactly.
I hear that all the time. People come in for lessons. Here's what I'm supposed to do. And then I say, well, sir, you're 78 years old and your foot speed's not going up. Your backswing's not getting higher and you're not adding knee bend to get your rev rate higher. So coaching isn't about me telling you what to do. Coaching me is about me telling you what you can do after I observe what you do, what's your bowling IQ, what's your skill set, what's your age, what's the flexibility of your body. All those things have to be taken into consideration before I try to help you. Now, release like that, I'm just trying to give you the basic. So if you watch some of the best bowlers, the easiest way to look at it, EJ Tackett, the best one-handed release probably in history of bowling. When he's done, it always looks like a horseshoe.
That horseshoe.
So he gets it to here, he gets it to there, and he gets it to there, but it always ends up never past there. Pete Weber, same thing. You could do way worse than have a finished position of EJ Tackett, Pete Weber.
And still be a pretty good bowler.
You'll probably like bowling a lot more if your hand looks like EJ Tackett's when you're done, or Pete Weber's.
And that's just a fact. Okay, thank you for that. That was a great explanation, honestly. So, you mentioned the jigsaw formula of putting the frame together first before the middle being the last part of the puzzle, which in bowling is power. How do you teach your students to add more revs and power once they have the other things in place?
I've never really been able to increase anybody's rev rate.
Really?
I think that's in effort to increase rev rate, all I see is lack of accuracy. Remember, a lane's built a very specific way. It's 45 feet of accuracy, 15 feet of shape or power. You don't need any power the first 45 feet for the simple reason there's no pins. If your rev rate's really high by the arrows, so what? They don't pay you for that. So I've never really tried to add a rev rate. What I try to make your body is function better. Because there's 2 things at play when you throw a bowling ball. How your body functions and throwing a bowling ball. Why are the pros the pros? Because they make their body function the best as they happen to be throwing a bowling ball. What I find with everybody else, they throw the bowling ball in spite of how their body functions. That's why the most requested thing is consistency. If I get your timing better and your balance better and your consistency better and your timing better, the power tends to show up more in how your pins fall down.
For sure.
It's not so much, everybody's enamored with the number, the rev rate number.
That's more what that's about.
That's all this is about the number. It's more about what your score at the end. I mean, so that's how you have to look at it. Now I get it, the guys on tour have, EJ Tackett has the highest rev rate. The nicest way I can explain it to some of the guys I coach, I want my rev rate to be like this guy. I ask, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm a civil engineer. How many hours of work? Between 40 and 60. That's what EJ does. So you're gonna bowl for an hour a week and you wanna have the same release as the best guy of all time. So careful on some of that stuff unless you're willing to put in really a lot of reps. Because what happens is, I find people that are trying to increase their rev rate is when their game goes apart. They lose balance and they lose accuracy. So if you don't have balance and accuracy, the rev rate's irrelevant. That's like saying I get the ball 350 yards. I can't keep it in the driving range, but my God, can I hit it a long way? How do you do on the golf course? Well, I can't break 100. Yeah, that old guy can't barely hit 180 off the tee. He shoots 75 every round. So I get it. It's the hot topic. the things that get the most views on in the YouTube world is how to increase your rev rate. I like watching some of the videos from the Far East.
Yeah.
Those boys put a good move on it, but the ball tends to rev up a lot by the arrows.
Yeah, and I think a prime example is you can go into any bowling alley that has bowlers that have really bowled in there for a while. Not everybody has a 500 rev rate. Not everybody has a 400 rev rate.
It's hard to do.
You'll see some scores that are really good still, despite all of that. So none of that really.
So to get your rev rate higher, your hand has to be cleaner, your timing has to be better. You really got to engage your lower body to pop your right leg if you're right-handed. Your right leg and your hand have to really be in concert. That right leg has to pop your hand through the bottom of that swing, so that rev rate's fairly natural.
Yeah.
And more important of what I see of rev rate, it's about the consistency. So we use EJ Tackett. When I did the strike challenge, it was right at 510 pretty much
Almost every
shot.
ball, yeah.
To me, the impressive part isn't the 500. The impressive part is the 510, 510, 510, 510, 509, 511.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why he makes so many shows. He's so consistent. He has a high rev rate, but it's the most consistent high rev rate.
Yeah, so the inconsistency will definitely.
I get why everybody wants it. I mean, whenever you go to the driving
It looks
range,
good, I
want a
mean-
new driver. You know, they sell a lot of new drivers. This one's, what do they say? This driver is going to give you 20 more yards. It didn't say which way the 20 yards is going to go. It's in that tree or in that water, but it did go 20 yards farther for your free drop.
I feel like that's the same reason why all the balls keep on getting a little bit stronger, as they would say, a little bit stronger.
Hey, man, the greatest commercial of all time said what? Chicks dig the long ball.
Yep. You ain't
They
lying.
like the high rev rate. I get it.
Okay. I drift to the left, but then slide back to the right 3 boards. Is that a bad thing? I see more people on tour do it as well. I see some people do it.
As long as your slide is on the same board as your pivot step, it won't interfere with your swing plane. There's a slot your swing gets into. So if you look at most of the pros, you watch you guys on TV, here's their pivot step, and they tend to slide almost on the same board, maybe a board left or a board right.
Absolutely.
As long as that 3 boards right's not inside your pivot step, because when you start sliding inside your pivot step, your swing slot has nowhere to go. You're only going to hit yourself in the ankle hard really once.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to really smoke it one time. The next time, you're not hitting. I've never seen anybody hit their ankle twice in a row.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens. If you slide into your swing, either you hit your ankle or what happens? You have to get your hand to go around your ankle. So that's where you add the rotation too soon. My ball doesn't read the back of the pattern. So 3 boards is about the limit of it. If you slide more than 3 boards across your pivot step, it's very hard for your swing path to stay lined up. If you look at some of the best technical bowlers of all time, you look like the easiest one, and one I work with probably the most, Chris Barnes. He's still on the same board. You look at Norm Duke, slide on the same board. You look at some of the best bowlers, they tend to slide on that same board because what happens is it keeps their head quiet. So if your head's quiet, your spine's here. Well, your arm swing comes off your spine tilt. So if your spine tilt doesn't move, here's your swing slot. If I slide into it, my slot has to go around it.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of why I like to slide straight, maybe a board or two, one way or the other.
Okay.
3's on the edge.
3's on the edge. So you're living on the edge out there. Number 6. How do I find out my numbers?
Well, the easiest way to do it, how to find your drift and miss numbers, like mine are 4 and 3. So I'll do a little explanation real quick. So 4 and 3 left means that if I want to slide on 20 and I want to hit 10, I stand on 16 and I look 7. I think the easiest way to do it is to have a couple different places, because bowlers that drift a lot left, we tend to drift a lot left when we play out and drift less when we play in. People that drift right don't drift as right when they play out, but that's why they struggle playing in, because they drift a lot back to the right. So for me, the easiest test would be stand on 18 with your left foot. I'd measure by the middle, look at second arrow, throw 10 shots. You write down where you slid and what you think you hit, but you have to have an independent party writing down their numbers. Here's where you slid, here's where I think you hit. Because what we see sometimes and what somebody else sees, because of where your head is at the foul line. If you're sliding on 25 and you think you hit 12, but I'm sitting on the back of the lane to the right of you, I may think you're hitting 11 every time. So to be exact, get an independent party to watch while you do your test. And then I would also do the test for standing on 25, looking about 13.
So it's very hard to do by yourself.
You can if you're really on. I mean, if you can see some people, I don't pick the ball up very well by the arrows. Because I played basketball like you, so I learned how to pick my ball up at 30 feet. So when I throw a bowling ball, I can never tell you what I hit in the front in my entire career. I can tell you instinctively, that hit exactly where I wanted. Ooh, that was a little bit in.
That's
oh my God, did I miss by a bunch left? Because I never miss right on my target in my life, because I walk left. So I always saw my ball halfway, because I shot a jump shot, and you watch the arc. At halfway, Well, it better be online.
Exactly.
You're not very good. If it's not online, then you shouldn't be shooting jump shots. So at halfway, like that's short, that's long, that's going in. So then you would react by following your shot. Now they just pose and they give it the three. They don't ever follow their shot. Us old school guys, we got a few of our own rebounds. And we actually ran back on defense. That was for you, LeBron, in case you're watching. The Lakers play you a lot of money. Why don't you run back on defense? If you want to be considered the GOAT. The GOAT was Defensive Player of the Year a couple times and made it 9 times. He always ran back on defense. So for all you LeBron James fans, I'm a Michael Jordan guy. I'm old. And I'm even older. I got Jerry West up there.
Amen.
All defense about 9 times.
Amen to that.
Me, myself, never made all defensive team. I was too busy shooting.
Yeah.
But I was following my shot.
You followed that shot.
Hey, how's that for going off topic?
No, I love it. I love it. That was a hell of an analogy, and it just got better and better and better and better. Oh, man, that was great. So, next question. What can I do to stop my arm from swinging behind my butt?
So I guess you're talking about your swing on your your backswing?
I guess so.
The backswing, it's usually created by, I tend to see people get the ball behind them is the people that trying to drop down their second step, so it's not really a swing. So when they pull it back, when you pull the ball back with your shoulder's going to open up. But more importantly, a pullback, the ball is always going to want to go towards the center of gravity. The center of gravity is the middle of your back. Mm-hmm. So if you take that second step and you drop and your ball gets dead on your downswing and you pull it back, that tends to be the one that comes in, or the people that drift into their swings.
Okay. Nice. Okay.
I'll stay on topic once.
No, you're good. You can do whatever you want, Mark. When Mark says stand on 10, look at 5, what exactly does that stand on part mean? Is he referring to the slide foot, or
Yes.
is it the board that you set the ball down on?
No, I would never tell you which ball to set the ball down on because you can't see it while you do it.
Okay.
Part of coaching is me teaching you more about you. Mm-hmm. So coaching is the ability for you to go bowl without me standing behind you. I literally can't go everybody's bowling alley and I coach them while they bowl league. I barely have a good enough job coaching my own son when he bowls. So when I stand on 10 and look at 5, it's always in the stance and it's always the target.
Where exactly?
I look on the middle of I just look at my middle of my foot because when I was always checking my drift when I bowled, when I looked down at the foul line, it was much easier to look at my toe. Yeah, I'm 22, so yeah, I'm standing on 18, I drifted 4, I'm good.
Perfect.
Because when I would get in trouble, I would start drifting 5 or 6, so my target doesn't change. So if I drift too far left, then the ball's offline to my target. My hand tries to come around it to get it back online, and that's when I would go on my 2-8-10 run.
Yeah.
Basically 1981 to 1983 on tour. I think I led the tour in 2-8-10s. So I learned how to walk a little straighter and left a few less.
It sounds very familiar for me too, huh? Here we go. All right, next question. Long term, will planting be bad for your knee joint? I've been planting for several years and I'm 64 years old now and want to be able to bowl as long as I can. Should I switch to slide or just keep on planting?
Well, in your question, you never alluded to your knee hurting. So a lot of it has to be just how your body's built. Some people have, some people do really, really well. Their body never hurts their entire life, and some people have a lot of pain. So if you're 64 and you're not experiencing any knee pain now and you plant, it would probably be pretty tricky to learn how to slide. So it's always about how your body reacts to it. Some people have very loose joints and they don't get sore at all. Some people are pretty stiff. And the planting, you would know pretty quick if your knee was going to hurt. I've had quite a few people I coach that, hey, by the 3rd game, I'm done. My knee, I hurt so bad, I got to start taking a leave. I got to ice it when I get home. I can't walk upstairs. Those are people I get out of the plant into the slide. But if you're not experiencing any pain and you're 64, you've been doing this a while, I think you should be okay.
Nice. Okay. What does it mean when people release across their body? Does that do anything, or is it just their release?
Well, if you release it, you're talking about your follow through, I think, coming across their body. That's become a much more, when I bowled, nobody did that. Nobody followed through this way. We all tend to follow through a little bit right of our head. The reason being, when I learned how to bowl, the balls didn't hook, or hooked very little compared to today. The easiest way we bowled it, we had a core that was 3 ounces. Now they have a core that's 5 pounds, 80 ounces. Ball changes direction for you. When I wanted the ball to change direction, I had to do it myself. So there was a way different, our follow throughs were different. So now, because people are more open, because the break point's 5, 6, 7, 8. When I bowled, the break point was always 9, 10, 11 probably. Very rarely was it that far right. So, because we bowled on wood, the ball didn't hook as much on the back end, it hooked more early. So we had way more rotation. So I think the following through left is more to get there, like a lot of the follow throughs now go through their face, they go over their shoulder. I would prefer it to go left of your face than I would 6 inches right of your face. So I think that's what it is. They're a little bit more open. They're going more left to right now than they ever have. And the ball's hooked way more in the back. So adding that rotation late is that hand kind of wiping over the ball, which actually is, if you look at Chris Prather, probably one of the most consistent releases that can do a lot of different things with his hand and have a lot of different ball shapes. Prather's really, really good at it. His follow through tends to go through his face or a little bit left of it.
That's beautiful,
I think
too.
when I coach now on the strike seeker, when I see follow throughs that go right through the middle of the face, I always think that's a pretty good shot.
Absolutely. Okay. Shout out to Chris Prather. Hi, do you have any advice for bowlers with flat feet? Is there a proper type of shoe for us? Or do I have to plant instead of sliding?
It's a very hard question for me to answer. I never had flat feet.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever gotten that question, so I'm not sure how that works. I mean, that's up to, I guess it's just up to how well if you have flat feet, I guess that's how well your rhythm is.
Yeah.
If your rhythm's going to be really slow, you're probably going to have to plant. If you have flat feet and you've got good rhythm and you generate enough foot speed, sliding will be easy. But because your feet are flat and maybe you walk a little slower, if you walk really, really slow, it's hard to have a good slide without generating momentum out of your back leg, because the back leg shoves your slide forward. The slide's not independent. We're not ice skating.
Yeah.
So when that right leg bends and slides that left foot forward, if that's hard for you to do because you have flat feet, that may be a problem. If your feet are really, really slow, people that have really, really slow feet tend to plant and pull down with their shoulder a little bit.
Okay, gotcha. All right, and our last question. I bought Mark's Game Change for two-handers and have been trying to improve my timing when I practice. But when I bowl for score, should I concentrate on my footwork or arm swing during my approach? Does the footwork drive the swing or the swing drives the footwork?
I'm a big believer in the footwork drives the swing. Other coaches believe the swing is way more important than the footwork that it follows. I've never been that way. I'm a jock. So I played sports all my life, and it's always about your lower body.
Yes.
And it's always about your balance. You don't balance yourself with your arms. So your legs. So a guy named Joe Willman was the greatest coach in the world, great bowler, one of the greatest coaches of all time in the 40s, 50s. He said that you always should think about your footwork. That's the only thing touching the earth.
That's a very good point, too.
So I'm a big believer in my footwork dictating what my swing does, because I'm in everything I believe in my timing, whether it's two-handed or one-handed. I want that slide foot in front of your head, whether you're measuring your left arm or you're measuring your right arm. That's just how it works. You've got to get your body ahead of your swing. So I think the footwork determines the swing. And also on that, really work on it when you practice, but as soon as you put your ball down and you're bowling for score, work on your balance, hitting your target, and having a high pocket percentage. Don't try to work on your game when you're bowling for score. This tournament or league, it's time to bowl, knock down as many pins as you have, and you just got to work with what you have that day. There's a lot of biorhythms. Some days you got it, some days you don't. But if you want to be a good competitive bowler, you got to bowl good all the days. So even when you don't have it, make it work. If you're not throwing it very good, just don't throw it very good all day. But you can always be lined up.
Figure out how to not throw it good better.
No, some days it's just not your day.
Yeah.
Well, if that's not your day, it's like playing basketball.
Yeah.
And your jump shot's not going in, you start going to the hole, try to make layups, play a little defense, and then you do other things to help the team. Same thing in bowling. If it's not your best release, but you can throw it the same every time, no matter what I do, I'll leave a flat 10. Well, that means you're hitting the same place in the pocket every time. Adjust off the flat 10 and just keep throwing it consistently the same. You'll figure it out.
Absolutely. We appreciate you, Mark. Shout out to Mark Baker for answering the questions. Thank you guys so much for answering or asking these great questions. This was a great segment. We appreciate them. Continue to ask us questions in the comments, please. Do you have anything for our viewers?
Oh, that's a blast. I love the questions. It makes me think a little different. Helps me with my coaching when I go back to it. It's been a great 2024. Look, 2025. Seems to be this question and answer thing is really popular. Keep sending them in. Like today, there were some questions I never heard. There's always a lot of questions. Send them in. And if LeBron, you were watching, my son's a huge Laker fan. We would love free tickets. We can come down. I can critique your defense and help you get to that GOAT position you're trying so hard for. Love you, LeBron.
He also teach you how to throw a strike.
No, he did good on that. He bowled that one year. He did good.
He did.
Just stone cold.
He is from Ohio. He's from Ohio.
He just piped it down the middle and he struck. And, when you're that good of an athlete, obviously things come easy to you.
You can knock some pins down.
But there is two sides to every court. You go back and you put your hands up and you try not to let the guy just make a layup.
And on that note,
Drives me nuts.
Appreciate you. Perfect. What's going on, crew? I'm here with the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Baker, for some more questions for you guys in the comments. We appreciate all of the love. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing great. Starting out 2025 fairly busy. Things are going well. I'm just staying busy with all the stuff. The cleanup crews definitely helped that with the virtual lessons and the in-person lessons. So people love these questions. Let's get to it.
Man, we're going to dive right into it because I know you guys, their attention spans aren't too long. So question number 1. Okay, how does one correct a very right drift? I start with my right foot on the 5th dot and throw my ball over the first arrow. So I drift all the way over. Should I change my target where I drop my ball? I've tried moving right, but then my ball goes to the 7 pin. I need to start left, but need to know where to look to keep me from drifting right.
So the way you want to do it is you probably want to line up off the other foot. If you're, I'm assuming your person's right-handed. You always start with the foot you're going to slide with, I believe. Now, some people do it a lot different.
I never even realized that.
The best bowler in the world, Jason Belmonte, at times, I think he lines up off his right foot. So that's not a tried and true method, but he also walks left.
Yeah.
So in an effort to walk straighter, because standing on your right foot's on 25, that means your left foot's on 30, and you're playing first arrow. So what happens is, if the lanes have a lot of oil in the house, and you're always a product of your environment, and you drift that far, and you can yank it, and there's oil at 10, that's actually an effective way. Once the lanes break down and you have to play 11 or anywhere left, it's almost impossible with a 20 board drift right to get your ball to go left or right because you're walking into your swing, so his hand can't stay behind the ball. His swing has to bump around his ankle because he's sliding into his target. The easiest way to do it is put your left foot on 20, so it's going to look weird, and put your eyes at 10 and have somebody stand next to you. You can't do it on your own. People that drift right or people that drift left that have a lot of either one, because you don't realize you're doing it, somebody has to walk with you with your, I do it all the time here. People that drift right, I stand with my hand on their shoulder. I want to see where they drift.
You did that in the video with us. With
yeah, I want to see where you drift because it's usually it's either the first step in your weight transfers, your center of your body goes right, then your body follows it, or it's 1, 2, 3 because of what he did. His feet are so far left and his target's so far over there. If he walked straight, he couldn't hit his target. So much about being accurate or hitting a target is where you slide. Where you slide and where you hit, I always talk about the math. His math is bad. So put your left foot on 20, put your target on 12. So it feels like your target's on this shoulder. And then you got to feel like your head never gets towards your target. Try to keep your head left of target. Have somebody stand with their arm on you. Have them gently, so you, hey, I want to slide on 25, or feel like you're going to slide on 25. You won't. You're trying to get to a 0 drift. Have somebody stand with you and walk the entire way. You're going to have to do that quite a bit. If somebody has a drift 20 boards, it's going to take more time. But you have to get used to the feel of your body going straight. So when you're done, if he's sliding on 20 and he's looking at 10, his arm's going to be hanging around 12. All of a sudden, he can throw it in front of him. The ball's going to go this way. If you drift 20 right, and you're just going to pull it left every time.
Every time.
So when he tries to move right and do it the right way, he's going to pull because he's not affecting his drift. You got to find a spot at the approach you're going to slide. How do I slide there? If I slide on 20 and I look at 10, you can go from there.
True.
But somebody's going to have to put their hand on your shoulder. And when you go to dive right, all that weight shifting, you got to just gently move you back so you get the feel. All of a sudden, your weight transfer will be different. And that's usually about 4 or 5 shots, people start walking much straighter.
That's amazing. Great explanation.
That's one of the hardest things to fix.
Yeah, I've seen you do it, and I was kind of mind blown the first time I saw it because I was like, wow. And you actually bumped him. He was a big guy. So you
sometimes you have to push back. You're right. And if you're moving me and I weigh 280, if you're moving me sideways, you got a hell of a drift.
Okay, next question. Is it better or worse to have the ball rest on your forearm as a two-hander?
You know, I see it. I think to create a good swing, if it's up on your forearm, you got to be pretty strong. Most of the good two-handers rested in their hand because if you think about it, I'm a big proponent of the swing set analogy for two-handed. The ball's the kid, your two arms are the chains, and your shoulder's the bar. So if you hold the ball up on your wrist, that's not how a swing set would work. True. So if you roll it down onto your hand, so when the ball swings back with the left hand and the right hand holding the ball, that way you can swing your arms off your shoulders a little better. If the ball's up on your forearm, as soon as I just put the ball up on my forearm, there's no ball here, imaginary, and I roll that up, now my forearm is engaged and my bicep tightened up. So if my bicep tightens up, that tightens up my tricep. The hardest part for two-handers is creating length of swing. So if I hold it up here and I have a hard time getting my body ahead of my swing because my arm is tight, it's not going to go up as high. You're always trying to get more length because both hands are touching the ball. So the height of your backswing is critical in bowling because it's restricted by how far you can get your left hand to go back.
So it needs to be a comfortable spot.
You have to
for
be able to get your hands behind you. A two-hander, you got to get your legs ahead of your swing because you're restricted by the height of your backswing because both hands are touching the ball. Now that I talk about that quite a bit in my instructional video. If you go to markbakerbowling.com, click on the Games Change video series, scroll down, two-hand instructional. We talk about that a lot. I use Jason Belmonte and Anthony Simonson, the two best of all time, and explain how that works, and you'll see how Jason does and Anthony. But they both get to the same timing spot in different manners, but their arms are very loose.
Arms got to be loose, guys.
I believe because you're restricted by the height of your backswing.
True. That makes sense. Question number 3. I don't use a push away anymore. Are you opposed to this, or is it okay to not use a push away?
You better be strong. If you don't have a push away, you better be really strong.
Because you have to weight that ball, and you got to.
Well, then your shoulder is a socket and it swings off a socket. But if you pull it up, then you conversely have to pull it down.
Back.
So invariably, people that don't have pushaways tend to have early timing. That's kind of how I look at it.
Okay.
I think your elbow should move your hand forward 2 or 3 inches. It's like a swing set. How do you start a kid? You give them a gentle push. So if you push the ball out and you stay up and you walk by it, then your ball swings back fairly easy. Yeah. If you drop it down, or if you have no push away and you drop the ball down,
you're engaging.
The ball's dead.
Yeah.
There's no reason for the ball to. There's no pendulum if you don't move it forward.
Yeah.
And that little click 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 thing.
It's got to have.
Well, something's got to push the first one to make the rest of them click.
Yeah.
You can't just say drop now have a pendulum. I mean, I hear that every day.
It's got to come from.
I want a pendulum swing. I don't want to push away. I'm like, yeah, the math doesn't work.
Yeah, the math ain't mathing.
So it's not, the physics doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not a big proponent of a giant push away, but I still think there has to be something going forward to let it swing back, because the easier it swings back, it allows your footwork to get ahead of your swing much easier, because it always comes down to timing.
And that works for the 2-finger no thumb bowler, because just when you did that, you looked like Tom and how he.
You look at Tom Doherty, the best no thumb 2-finger bowler in the world. He has a high extended push away up in his eyes, and his backswing's very short. He's got to kind of hide the ball in front of him because he's so restricted by his backswing with no thumb, because it'll fall off and be short. So Tom does it that method, and obviously in the last 10 years, nobody's even close as good as Tom Doherty at it.
Yeah. Earl thinks he is.
Got a ways to go. Helps being big and strong. Tom is a strong human being.
He is. That's why Earl's
Big
always
dude.
in the gym.
Tom is strong.
All right, question number 4. What is the best exercise for targeting? I am very inconsistent.
I'm not for exercise for targeting. So much has to do with, you have to know your drift.
Yeah.
You have to know where you're going to end up. So I've been doing this a long time. So in my era, we didn't switch balls much. I mean, I went from a dull black U dot to a shiny black U dot to a wine black U dot to a green dot or red dot and then a white dot, and I was done. That was it. There was no, the technology today, the bowling balls are so much different, so we spent more time. So targeting is you have to really understand where you're going to slide. So in my world, you tell me where you want to slide. If I'm going to slide 25, I'm playing 11, 12, 13. I want to play 8. I'm sliding 17, 18, 19. You give me one number, I can give you the other number. And they're always going to get the ball pretty close to the Baker box. That's what I believe in, and it seems to work on a daily basis. So it's just math. If you want to get better at targeting, get better at sliding in the right place. Now, if you're sliding on 20 and you're aiming and hitting 7, that doesn't work.
No.
If you're sliding on 20, hitting 12, 13, that doesn't work. So where you slide kind of determines where you hit if you want your ball at that 5, 6, 7, 8 at 45 feet zone.
So question, in theory, because I know bowlers that are really good, and I feel like I've had zones I've gotten in at times where I play more of a zone than worrying about what arrow I'm hitting. Because when I'm in there, I know that just by doing what I do and hitting my mark consistently from doing that so often, that I know the ball's going to go in that direction, and I'm usually good. And I know that there's bowlers. I mean, I've even spoken to EJ when he's bowled on, tour in between a shot and asked him where he's throwing the ball. He doesn't even have a clue.
So they're more about, like with my son, he's two-handed and he's starting to bowl pretty good in some tournaments. It's much more when we talk when he's bowling. I'm trying to help him while he's bowling. Get it online. It's the angle.
Yeah.
A to B.
Yeah.
It's the angle. If he's trying to hit 17, if he hits 17, 16, or 18, and he hits 6, 7, or 8 down there with his rev rate and speed,
he's usually good.
But it's always a parallel. The angle is so important. So EJ's getting it to a spot he wants down there from where he slides. So he's creating the same angle every single time. So I get that. When my era was all about, they put dimes on the arrows, hit the dime. We didn't even talk.
Wouldn't that mess up your ball?
I never hit the dime, so I don't know. They made fun of me because I couldn't hit the dime. But then Mark Roth one day put a dollar bill between the 1-3 and said, let's see who hits that more often. I was high average on tour that year.
Yeah.
So the old guys were making fun of me not hitting the dime, but I was hitting that dollar bill.
You hit that dollar bill, though.
Yeah, they were watching me bowl on Friday while
You knew which one was worth more.
I played a lot of sports. I understand how it works. Guys that were good in practice in basketball usually didn't suit up in the games.
Nah, they didn't.
Right, yeah. I remember how that worked. Okay. But hitting a target, you have to be able to understand where you're. Think of it this way, an easier way to say it. There's 2 targets on the lane. The front target, the arrows, is for you, the bowler. Where you slide and where you hit gets it to the back target.
Yep.
The back target's for the ball. E.J. Tackett is the best in the world is getting his ball to the back target. He understands the back target better than anybody I've ever seen because that makes his ball the most effective. Remember, the ball does the striking. So you're using the front target to get your ball to the back target.
And the pins are always
and
in
that
the same
depends where you
place.
slide.
Yep.
So if EJ wants to, wherever he's playing, he knows if he slides around here and he hits there, it's going where he needs it to get, so he has the best chance of striking.
That's where my psychology's kind of gone since learning what the Baker box is, since actually learning my drift, since actually consistently throwing the ball the same way and knowing what it's going to do. Where I've gotten is knowing that if I worry about the first 15 feet of the lane, the ball does the rest.
If you get it online through the angles you want to that spot, so what you're talking about is feel. Now EJ may have the most. I've got to work with EJ on Team USA a couple times. I saw him do some things in person that I'd never seen done before. I'll leave that. It's all good stuff, but just this guy's a different animal. I mean, it was impressive what he could do. So his feel might be as good as anybody I've ever worked with. His feel is amazing. On the flip side of that, I work with Chris Barnes a lot. He might be the most technical. He could actually hit the dime. You can put the dime anywhere you wanted. Chris
He's
could
gonna hit it.
He just hit it. Like he had. Now Chris was unique, 0 drift, and he hit. He was 0-0. Like I'm 4-3. We're talking about drift. I drift 4 left, and I would miss 3 left of my target.
In theory, there's more margin for error when you.
No, it's just
actually
my
have
numbers.
That's just your numbers.
If I want to slide on 20 and hit 10, I would stand on 16 and look 7. Chris would stand on 20 and look 10. Then he would slide on 20 and hit 10. I know Barry Asher did it. I think Norm Duke was pretty close.
Do you think that's what made them so great, though, is the fact that because of...
But they're the only ones I really know that did it. Everybody else has a bunch of numbers in there. We all drift. At my bowling camp, I have Doug Kent, Dave Husted, Barry Asher, Linda Barnes, Robin Romeo, Tennille Milligan. I had a lot of all Hall of Famers, and they all had a unique little way of doing it. But the one thing we all had in common, if you asked, hey, Doug Kent, what's your numbers? They know their numbers that cold. So, okay, well, I want you to slide on 32. Then Doug goes, I'm going to stand here. I want you at 18. Got it. So they're doing the math so fast, they're not doing the math. That's kind of what our generation did more of. Now this generation is much more, because they understand the balls better. If they get the ball to the right spot down lane,
it's going to do the
they're
rest.
using their front target. Because if you watch them bowl on TV, their eyes are going up and down a lot. You can see where they're trying to get it down there, and then they draw their eyes a line back, and then they have their drift, and you're getting it through there with how much rotation they're putting on it. So they're dominating that spot down lane.
Yeah.
Because they all see the lane different.
Yeah.
That's one thing about bowling. No two bowlers bowl the same.
But they're all getting it to the same spot to
But
get
they all
to
get
that
there
pocket.
uniquely.
Exactly.
Because we all bowl the ball, because we all throw the ball different, how we see the lane is unique to everybody. If you had to write down what we're all doing, you could see 3 or 4 of the best bowlers in the world playing the same lanes, but you had to write down what they were doing, like the answers wouldn't match. Like, you're
how
doing
is
what?
this happening?
Yeah, but you guys run the ball the same way. But we're not seeing that. We don't see the lane. They don't pick the ball up in the same place. So there's all kinds of touch and unique feel. Everybody's feel is unique. Everybody sees the lane unique because they're unique.
Yeah.
So that's why it's very hard to tell somebody, you should play 12. Like, well, okay, if I look 12, I'm going to hit 15. So that's a bad answer to me. That's why I didn't ask much.
And it might not apply, And
So when they told me how to play lanes all the time, I thought it was like the Peanuts teacher. Wah, 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 wah. I got real good at shaking my head, never hearing a word they said.
I remember when we were at the TOC last year, which I saw you at, when Simo was warming up, I was talking to Tim on the side, and him and Schlim were kind of just like, we never know how he's going to see the lane until he sees it.
He can't explain it. They're so good at it. They just know, oh, it did that, so now I do this.
Yeah.
That's the top level of feel in the world. And I think the newer bowlers have more feel than some of us did because of because we didn't have to switch balls so much.
Yeah.
But then again, if you put Mark Roth in here, his touch and feel, or actually the guy who had the most feel probably of all time was Dick Weber.
Yeah.
He had the most ability to change what his hand did at the bottom of the swing, depending on how he felt his feet were fast or slow. And then Dick would get to the bottom of the line and make his hand, he call it a feather. When Dick talked about that stuff, I didn't know what he's talking about. I always thought when Dick and Mark Roth talk to each other, I should have gone home and been a bond trader. Like, what am I doing on tour? Because they're talking at a level, like two dolphins talking to each other.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are they?
What are they talking about?
Well, I'm never going to win 20 titles. I don't even know what the conversation's about. So I always think about that. I heard him talking in the bar at Showboat, talking about feathering it when your feet get fast so you go light. I'm like, I'm just trying to hit the one in the front. The lanes are hard. They're talking about using different parts of the pocket. I'm like, oh,
That reminds me
I should
of,
go home and be a stockbroker.
The first moment I had like that after coming back on this journey was at the Masters last year in Vegas. It was Chris talking to, I can't remember which rep he was talking to, but he was talking to one of them. And I just happened to be sitting right there. So they're practicing, you know, they get the full hour, they get to do whatever they want. He's at a point where I'm watching him throw strike after strike after strike, and I'm thinking, all of those look good. I don't know what he's looking for. He comes back and asks the rep, which one looks better? He's like, that one's probably at about a 30-degree tilt. I probably, you know, I'm thinking maybe like 10 to 15. I was like, what am I listening to right now? And he goes up and he throws 3 strikes in a row, and I'm thinking to myself, I can't really see the fucking difference between these 3 strikes.
That's why I do get a little bit of, you know, I've had a lot of nice things said about me coaching the pros, but one of the things that's the hardest thing for me to coach the pros is the first 30 minutes.
Is it?
Because they're so good. I'm a fan, like, oh my, like when we used to have Maine, the PBA league, if you go back and talk all the pros where I hung out in Maine, I was always sitting in the benches on the practice pair, never talking to anybody. I was like a fan at the baseball game, getting to watch all-star hitting practice. Going, I'm watching Simo, and I'm watching Taka, and I'm watching Belmo, and I'm watching Dom Barrett, and I'm watching Yes. We're going, these guys are amazing. Now, 2 hours into it, I'm like, well, that shot was a piece of shit.
Now you
all right, now I got it. Now we're good. Jesus Christ, what did you do that for? Oh, that was horrendous. Oh my God, is Simo good? That was terrible, and it struck. No wonder he wins every week.
Yeah.
But the first half hour, I'm like a kid at the baseball game. Yeah. I'm watching guys hit batting practice. Like, I couldn't hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball to save my life. Yeah. But watching those guys, that's how good they are. But after about an hour or two, especially by day 2, then I can pick it apart and I can actually help them. But the first half hour, you watch those guys bowl. It's very, and then you hear them talk because they've elevated what they say to their tour reps. Yeah. They speak in like a shorthand. Yeah. I don't know what they're talking about. The first year I coached Chris Barnes, I didn't know what he was talking about. I just said yes all the time. Whatever you say, dude. Yeah, it makes sense to me. Good shot. I didn't know what he was saying. Now after a year, I picked up. You know, I learned how to talk Chris. Yeah. Because Chris should have been like working for the NSA because he talks in code. Yeah. He's doing the code. You have to what he's saying is like over here. He says this, but it means 4 more things. So that's for you, Linda, at home, trying to deal with that guy on a daily basis. All
right, we're gonna go back to the questions. That was amazing, though, and I hope you guys appreciated that because Mark gets to be in places that a lot of bowlers just never could even imagine.
Very, very fortunate. And I always think I always look at it as a pleasure and an honor to coach the pros today because I'm so far removed. It has no bearing on what I did 40 years ago because it really is. 2025, my best year on tour is 1985. It's a different century. It's 4 decades ago. It's irrelevant. Yeah. It gets my foot in the door because I was one of them once, but it has no business. You know, it's nothing to do with how I coach them. So when I do get a chance to work with some of the pros, a lot of them send virtual lessons. I always take it as an honor because they really are the best in the world. So it's fun to work with, and they really are extremely talented.
Yeah, and
so if you want to go out there and try the tour, you better have it strapped on pretty tight because that's not a place for forgiveness.
It's not.
They're harsh.
And they're doing it for their families. So shout out to all the guys on tour.
It's a much shorter schedule than I bowled, so they got to be really good, really fast.
That is very true. That is very true. And I wanted you to go into that because I feel like a lot of our viewers, although they're new into the sport, there's a whole other level to this that Mark has been able to see, which allows him to get this knowledge to be able to help you guys as well because he's coached it from top to bottom. He's coached the people that have just picked up the ball.
I have people that walk in the training center that do not bring equipment. There's no lesson that day. Like, you got to bring your own gear. They literally have never bowled. And I've had, Stu Williams and Chris and A.J. Johnson and Chris Vi and Daniel McEwen have been in here. So I've worked, Frankie Lavoie. I've worked with some of the very best, and it's an honor. And it's always impressive how good they are. But the thing that people don't, if you talk about a Daniel McEwen, you will be hard-pressed to find anybody who tries harder in the game of bowling.
Shout out to her.
She is as hard a worker as I've ever seen. All of her success is for one reason: sheer determination. So all those pros pretty much have that in common. They're just constantly working on their craft. So if you're going to do it for a living, you got to be willing to, like when my son Gage, decided he wanted to become a bowler. We called, as you know, very fortunate to say, Uncle Chris. Uncle Chris, how many games do you practice a week? And when did you decide to become a pro? Chris said, when I got out of college, I didn't want a job. So I wanted to bowl for a living without going on the tour. So at the age of 22, I started bowling 100 games a week. And Gage going, wow, how long did that last? He goes, till I turned 50. And Gage is like, 28 years, you bowled 100 games a week, including a tour. He goes, if I made the finals on tour and had a good
You were
week,
gonna be
I'd
doing that
bowl 30
anyway.
or 40.
Yeah.
But I pretty much averaged 100 for 28 straight years. And when I turned 50, I knocked it down to 50 games a week. And he's looked at me in the car, and I'm like, yep. And so when they say, hey, Uncle Chris, thank you, when they hung up, Gage said, you and Chris are both crazy. And because if I look back on my career, and I think one thing is, when I hear Chris talk, I didn't work hard enough. I should have practiced more. I could have put in more time. Yeah. And if you ask Chris now, he would say, I didn't try hard enough. So you have to have that craziness in your mind. That's not talking to Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant. Nobody ever outworked Kobe. So these guys get to this level because of the work. So Danielle McEwen, I work with Shannon O'Keefe. Some of these guys, they just bowl so much and they work so hard at it. So there's, it's very hard to become a pro bowler.
Absolutely. Well, shout out to all of them. Love it. Next question. Let's see. When you are in your slide, are you sliding straight at your mark? And your mark is and is your mark at the center of your chest, I think they're trying to say?
No, your mark's usually over here on the outside here. So I think a good example, if I'm standing on 60 and I slide on 20, if you really break down video, which I'm a big video guy, especially here, every shot at the training center's on video, I'm a big proponent of your slide being exactly on the same board as your pivot step, maybe a board each way. Maybe you slide back in a board, you might slide a board left. But those two have to be there because your slide keeps your breastplate quiet and your shoulder swings off your breastplate. Yeah. So if I'm sliding into my target, like he said, I'm not a believer in that at all. That's sliding towards your target. Because you slide towards your target, how do you not hit your ankle with the ball? If you're sliding here and your swing's coming down and your foot's sliding 5 boards right towards your target, sooner or later your ankle gets the ball is going to hit your ankle. Yeah. So that's when people tend to come out around it because you only smoke your ankle about once really good. Yeah. And you don't do that the rest of the day. Yeah. So no, I've always been a big proponent of the people that slide. I mean, you go back the last 50 years, the Barry Ashers of the world. A great bowler you want to look at for great form is Mika Koimanimi. I mean, he just practices a little bit now. He bowls every now and then out of Michigan. But for 2030, it's one of the best games of all time. Harder the lane's got, the better Mika bowled. You look at his footwork and his swing, he could hit a target for money when he was really, everything was on the line. His footwork and his swing are as good as anybody's ever bowled. So you start looking at all the bowlers that are really good, their slide and their pivot step tend to be on the same board because that drives their swing line. If this is here, that keeps my upper body quiet. If my breastplate doesn't move, my swing's online, then hitting a target becomes pretty easy. Like when Chris Barnes was in his prime. Hitting a target is something we never really worked on much because he could hit a target because of his footwork was so good and that dialed his swing in. So I'm a big believer in sliding straight off your pivot step. And no, you shouldn't be your target shouldn't be in the middle of your chest because then your hand has to hang outside anywhere 6, 8 boards, right? I don't get too technical on that part. But like if I slide on 20, I'm going to hit around 12 and it's going to go over, 10 to, whatever, out to 8 type thing.
Okay, great. Next question, and we're going to end up cutting these, so this is going to be good, but there's 3 more.
No worries.
Is there an optimal speed for bowling? Like where great things usually happen?
That's a really good question, and I always thought when they opened the ITRC, they should have brought in the best 100 bowlers in the world and just took all their numbers. Just bowl, strike all you want, and just take all the numbers of the best 100 male and female bowlers in the world. You'd have had tilts, rev rates, and ball speeds, and then you could have graphed it all. But to me, you have to have a giant enough sample group to pull that off. I'm sure for every mile an hour, there's a rev rate that goes with it. I can tell by eye if you're fast or you're slow. Yeah. So I mean, if you fight your ball hooking too much, you tend to throw it slow. If you fight your ball never hooking and you have a bunch of different equipment arsenal and you have the ability to move around the lane, then you probably throw it too hard. People that have the right speed and the right rev rate together tend to bowl good no matter where they bowl. True. So if you're really stuck, I can only play 5th arrow. That probably means your rev rate's too high for your speed. I can only play between 5 and 10. If I move in, my ball never hooks. That probably means you're speed dominant. So yeah, there is an answer, but I don't have it stone cold what it is. Yeah. I can watch you bowl and tell what it is.
True that. And I feel like the optimal comes from either not being too rev dominant or, speed deficient or, whatever, just having a good balance.
The way I would
between the
look
two,
at it
right?
is the people that have matchup really well, they don't really sweat the first 45 feet of a lane.
True that.
If you're fighting the first 45, you're not playing the back 15. The best bowlers I've ever said, my best friend in the world, Dave Husted, ball never hooked early a day in his life. The first 45 feet of the lane never really bothered him.
You never even saw it.
He is only bowling the back 15.
That's amazing.
So there's another reason why that matters, because that's where the pins are.
Yep.
Because in the other way of looking at it, if you're fighting the first 45, the guy kicking your ass isn't. Ask somebody who bowls good in the league every night. How'd you bowl? My God, my ball hooked in my toes. I had to move 7 times. Then you ask the guy who shot 70, 780. How'd you bowl tonight? Did they hook early? No, I had hold. The guy whose ball gets to the 45-foot mark with the least amount of effort is always the best bowler. Period.
Wow. Okay. Number 7. Any tips for getting no rotation and or less revs on the ball as a two-hander? My spear shooting is okay, but can suffer.
That kind of defeats the purpose of being two-handed. Stick your thumb in it. Problem solved. I want to hook the whole lane, but can you make me throw straight? I'm like, I get it. I'm not trying to be mean. But two-handed, you're going to have to, there's give and take.
He said his ball starts to, even though he throws a white mix, when the lanes get burnt down, he still has a little bit of trouble with his spare shooting because of how much the ball hooks.
So then what's becoming very, very prevalent in the two-handed world is the ability to throw a backup ball. I do not know how to coach it yet. I'm working on it. I've been watching a lot of, I don't watch video.
Yeah.
I'm infatuated with them dudes from Sweden. Them kids that throw the backup ball, 500 rev rate, 19 miles an hour, and they do the backup ball with the right hand. Then they run it out with the wrong. If you throw a backup ball, you should run it out with your left hand like a left-hander. You shouldn't be able to throw a backup ball and run it out with your right hand. That's the deal. It gets me all out of whack when they run them out with the wrong hand. So, but no, the backup ball, some of the kids I coach in Southern California are getting really, really good at it. I see some, Sam Cooley's doing it on tour with no thumb. I see, Simon was the first guy. It's coming. Because there's only 39 boards and there's so much rev rate now, and the balls are so good, I don't know how much oil they can actually put on them to negate the ball moving so far left, or your friend here with the mix. So a lot of bowling centers they just hook. So you're going to have to learn to throw it really, really a straight ball, or almost employ a little bit of a backup ball.
It's hard to throw straight as a two-hander though, huh?
Yeah, but I think it's easy to throw a backup ball.
Yeah.
Now, I can't do it. I mean, I never threw a backup ball in my life. I had a hard enough time throwing the right way. So I'm not sure how to teach it yet. I see it. I can understand it when I see it. I've never had to spend much time.
Bit. Can you throw a backup ball, Joel? Yes, he can.
So I think if you're going to be a two-handed bowler, you should spend 10% of your time working on a backup ball. It's not right. It's not wrong for all you purists out there. Last time I looked when you got done, they ask you one question.
What'd you bowl?
Who knocked down the most pins? You did. Here's the biggest check.
Here you go.
Oh my God, you threw a backup ball. We're not going to give you the money. You can't have the brackets because you threw a backup ball.
Never.
Last time I looked, everybody has the same amount of hours in the day to practice.
Yep.
I don't care.
Doesn't matter.
Whatever it takes to knock them down. I was with the pro bowlers for a long time. I guarantee you some guys I bowl with, David Ozio was the practice guy. If you would have convinced David Ozio that putting the ball on his forehead and throwing it forward like a dolphin at the marine land was the best way to bowl, David Ozio would have perfected that. When you bowl for a living, you don't really care. You want to make the biggest check.
Yeah.
So
knock them down.
The same amount of hours in every day for everybody in the world to get better.
Yeah.
So if you're two-handed, I would start working on the backup just because it gives you another option when the lanes get, we're working today, he gets so far left so quick. Once you run out of lane, what are you going to do? You keep going to weaker and weaker balls, but then you're getting beat by people who can get their ball down line with a stronger ball. Yeah. But if you have the ability to put a backup on it, hey, the pins are down there, you're up here. How are you going to knock them down?
So what would you say to a three-finger bowler on accuracy with spare shooting and if...
With their thumb in it?
Yeah, with their thumb in it.
Oh, yeah. The key to that is never give away the object pin. Your breastplate. So the best example I would give you would be Parker Bone, one of the best spare shooters of all time. If you watch Parker shooting his spare, his breastplate is always aiming at the object pin, so that aligns his swing. So Parker, Norm Duke, same way. Norm said the best. If I hit my target, the pin gets in the way of my ball. So Norm, he made it in his backswing.
So do they target arrows?
Oh, I'm sure they do. I've never asked them.
So
they all have their own way.
I was going to ask you, traditionally for
I'm not a real big fan of the pin bowling because if people look at the pins, they invariably lift their head to throw it because it's so far down. They tend to look up. When they look up, they rotate their shoulders. So you just got to figure out your own math.
Exactly.
I mean, on 10 pins, it's pretty simple. If you slide around 35, and you hit around 20.
It's going to go to the corner.
It's pretty much going over there. Yeah. If you slide on 35 and you hit 17, it goes in the gutter. You slide on 35 and you hit 23 and you hit the 9 pin.
What's funny is I stand on the equivalent of 37 and look at what would be, for me, 17, but I drift 4 boards. So it ends up being like 21.
I stand on 32 and I looked 18, so I'd slide on 36 and I'd hit 21. So, I mean, not that I was...
You were one off from
If you were
mine.
old enough to be watching this when I bowled on tour, I was not the person you wanted to use for your spare game. So I have a lot of empathy for the spare game because I wasn't, that
But
was
you had
probably
the
my
10
biggest
pin down.
weakness.
You had the 10 pin though.
I'm probably missed more than you've made. Biggest regret was not, I hung out with Mark Roth, Joey Berardi, Dave Husted, and Barry Asher. All time, 4 of the top 20 spare shooters of all time. And I bowled at a house I practiced at a house that had too much oil.
Yeah.
So I bowled at Champion Lanes. They actually had Vaseline. They'd heat up the Vaseline, make it liquid, put it in the oil. The
That's
lanes were
crazy.
flooded. Make your eyes burn walking in there. So I practiced spares there. Well, there was so much oil I had to do was get it close and it would just go straight. Then I'd go on tour and there wasn't Vaseline on the lanes. I'd miss a few, but
That's so
yes,
funny.
it's all math.
Okay.
Get your breastplate. Never ever give away the object pin.
Know your numbers, okay?
They give you dots and they give you arrows. It's just
'em.
math.
Use them.
Use them.
All right. Last question. Any tips on staying under the ball? I bowl similar to Earl, but I struggle sometimes with staying under the ball until I release.
I wouldn't try to do that so much.
Don't try to bowl
People
like
that try
Earl.
to stay under the ball never do it.
No. Yeah.
I would imagine they're two-handed because one-handed, nobody's under the ball. Biggest myth. Oh, I want to get under the ball. Like, well, I got EJ Tacken on film. He's not under it. He's in the slightly
said,
below the
So if
equator.
they bowl like Earl, then because Earl gets
That's
under
no
the ball
thumb, though.
pretty well,
But there's no thumb, yes.
And that's what he said.
Right. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's more to do with your timing.
Okay.
So if your timing's early, which happens to be the most common with people with no thumb, what I call the hybrid bowlers now. They start like a two-hander, and then they start like Belmo, and then they turn into Doherty. So once you get there and your backswing gets short, if your timing is early, what happens is the weight transfer goes from your right leg to your left leg, so you get forward so that your hand rolls up the ball. So timing is everything with the no-thumb bowlers. To get your hand to stay under it or behind it, as you put it. To get your hand here, that's the purpose because your thumb's not in it. So you got to get your hand here. Your body's got to get ahead of your swing so your hand's here easily. If you just think about your hand, that's not going to fix it.
Say
It's
that
more
part
about
again. Your
timing.
body's got to get ahead of your swing.
It's always about timing. It's always going
Explain
to come
that
down
part
to
to
timing.
people because I think when people think of timing, they don't know if they're early or late or if they're not even
I
there.
measure timing the same place for one-handers I do for two-handers. I use different arms. So when your slide foot gets flat in front of your head, I want the swing parallel. So if you're two-handed, when your slide foot gets flat in front of your head, I want your left arm parallel.
Yeah.
That's the same exact spot that like Vi, Simo, Belmo, Kyle Drew, they all get to the same spot. Jesper, that's the two-handed spot I measure for two-handers timing. What happens is that keeps your back leg as your power source, keeps your shoulder out of it so it's still a swing. Once your shoulder is the power source, it's no longer a swing, it's a throw.
Yeah.
Throws have two things in common. No accuracy, inconsistent releases. Swings have accuracy and a consistent release. So it has to be the swing, and that's created by timing.
Amen. Thank you so much, Mark. This was incredible, as always.
I can't, when you guys are coming, I make sure I never have coffee. Today I went from coffee to iced tea. Perfect.
Oh, here we go.
Let me get hyper and bring up the old days, and I got a million stories. That just means I'm old.
That was a gift, though, and I hope you appreciate it out there. I know I did. As always, check out markbakerbowling.com if you guys want to get a lesson in with Mark. He does virtual lessons. He does in-person lessons. He's a very busy guy these days.
A lot of these questions, I like to push it. I know how many I've sold, so a lot more bowlers are out there to buy it. These instructional videos, especially for the two-handers, I mean,
They're gold.
the way I say it, Anthony Simonson is so unique. It's a very tricky way to teach him to bowl. But obviously, one top 3 bowlers in the world.
It's working.
It's amazing. I think a kid named Spencer Robarge bowls a lot like Anthony Simonson, so you can use him. But I think if you're two-handed, I mean, Jason Belmonte's record is what his record is. It's 7 top players of the year and 15 majors. So the way you want to look at it, he's fundamentally sound. So a lot of these questions for the two-handers, it's $75 to buy it, but it'll skip your learning curve ahead so far, because then when you film yourself and then you film Jason and you start breaking down the first 3 steps, you will notice you probably don't look like him because so many two-handers always want to try to get low too early. And Jason doesn't get low too
He's
early.
straight up.
I'm not going to tell you what's on the video, but a lot of it, he just the way he does it, the way his swing comes back and that drops his head to get his hands up. So Jason get the ball to the top of his swing with the least amount of effort of any two-hander I've seen. So Jason, he's just fundamentally sound. So another way I put it, I mean, I know my son, I've used Jason as the way of looking at it. The more and more you look like Belmonte, the more you enjoy bowling. Because all of a sudden your balance gets good, and all of a sudden you can hit a target as a two-hander. I've never worked on a two-hander's release or a no-thumber's release because their thumb's out of it, so the release is the strength. So it comes back to balance and timing. So all I ever work on is accuracy. If I can get them somewhat in balance and somewhat accurate, then the strikes show up because they have a strong release to start. When you coach one-handers, you're trying to teach them power. They tend to show up in pretty good balance. Usually I work on their timing, but that's much more understanding the release window, where to add the rotation, how much to add. So that's a different game when you coach one-handers. So I had a one-hander video and a two-hander video, and I know we're getting a lot of seniors to watch these videos because everywhere I go, they talk to me. If you go on my website and you click on the Game Change video series and you scroll all the way down, it'll be a picture of me and Dave Houston having a conversation. It's for seniors or the well-seasoned player. Click on it. It's for free. I didn't even charge you for it. I did something just for the seniors. The do's and the don'ts when you become a well-seasoned player. I turn 64 next month, so I know all about that. My knees don't work, all that good stuff. So if you're
But he can still throw a strike, guys. He can still throw a strike.
May not be throwing me anymore. It's not looking too good today. Today, no bowling. But you just go watch it. You'll see there's some things you can do, some things you shouldn't be trying to do when you get a little older and you put a lot of miles on it. And your body hurts a little bit. That's just how we get older.
Yeah.
So go to the website. It just gets your learning curve, especially the two-handers who want to get better quick. Well, the video just skips a lot of stuff so you can see how they do it and where their similarities are and how your footwork and your swing and your timing work. That starts happening. Then all of a sudden you find some ball speed. Then all of a sudden you find some balance. All of a sudden you're hitting a target. So all of a sudden getting to 180 got quicker.
Yeah.
The video does help with that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Go check that out, guys. As always, shout out to the crew. Thank you, Mark, for your time.
Oh, so you guys haven't been here a while. I had all kinds of answers.
Until next time. What's going on, Mark? How are you?
I'm doing great.
Happy belated birthday to all of you out there that don't know. Mark just had a birthday and he's looking younger than ever.
Yeah,
so.
Mark just turned 64. This is what it looks like when you get old, folks.
And we're going to see if we can still have you striking in this 64th year.
Yeah, I think I throw my last strike that matters.
No. I'm determined, Mark. I'm determined.
No.
Are you ready for these questions?
Just like it's your last slam dunk, too.
Oh, yeah. No, we're not going to get into that. As you guys will see
I'm not the one
later.
that can't walk today either. That's you.
Well, I'm in this chair asking you these questions.
That's right.
So I'm going to dive into these questions from our subscribers. Thank you guys so much for sending these in. We love these questions. Mark loves answering them. I think a lot of people get a lot of value. And if you do want your question answered and haven't seen it yet, don't give up hope. We will try to get to as many of them as we can, but just continue to send them in because that's the only way that we'll be able to even give you an opportunity for it to get answered. So we're going to dive into this. Thank you so much, Mark. Question number 1, a question that has me thinking. I'm a right-handed bowler. Is my lineup based on my left or my right foot?
I tend to always use my left foot to line up when I'm my stance because when I slide, I look down at my left foot. When I slide on the left foot. So if I stand on 20, for me personally, and I slide on 24, I know I have a 4-board drift to the left. If you stood on 20 and you slid on 17 with your left foot, it's much easier to figure out your drift. Looking at your right foot than measuring with your left foot is a very tricky because the number is going to be too big. So it's much easier if you really want to know what your drift is on every shot to help you line up. So a good way to put it, the reason why I know my drift is 4, say I was watching somebody bowl and they were sliding on 20 and they were hitting second arrow. My drift is 4 left and I missed my target by 3, meaning if I look at 7, I hit 10. So I would stand on 16, look at 7, and I would slide on 20 and I would hit 10. So my drift and my miss is just my own way of doing it. I know the next question is going to be, how do I figure out my drift and what my miss number is? You need somebody to watch you bowl. The easiest way to do it, put your left foot on the square on your foot on 18, look at 10, and throw 10 shots, and look down at your foot and think what you missed and have somebody independently watch and have them write down the numbers, and then you two can figure out what your miss and what your drift is. That way, if you want to line up, it's just math. But I do get a lot of people asking me, how do you do the math? Can you do my math? I can do your math in person. I can't do it. I've got to see you bowl, see where you slide, see where you hit, and then I can do the math pretty quick. But I can't just randomly have here's a math chart. I could, but You know, then I'd have to figure out a way to get monetized on some information like that.
Yeah, maybe if people saw it written down, that's something we may be able to do for you guys right now.
But then I got to figure out how wide your shoulders are, how wide your hips are.
Yeah, that's a lot.
You know, there's a lot to know.
I was just saying, write down, stand at 20, look at 10, watch where your ball goes.
Yeah, but if you slide on 15 and you hit 7, then you got to know. You have to know your drift and miss to make all of it effective.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully that answers.
That's what coaching is. It's not me telling you what to do. It's me telling you what you can do. But more importantly, when you take a lesson, think of it like this. Here we go. So if you got a jigsaw puzzle and the picture is you in the middle and the word on top is consistency. The 4 things I believe in are timing and balance, accuracy, and breakpoint control. I believe so much in the breakpoint control, I invented my own way, the Baker box. So those are the borders. Those are easy. Borders in a jigsaw puzzle are easy to put together. The middle picture is you. So when you're talking about all the things you want to work on, your drift and your miss number, those are the inside pieces. Anybody's ever done a jigsaw puzzle, easy to do the border, but it might take you a whole week or a long time to find those 2 pieces you can't find. But once you find those 2 pieces, the next 5 line up. So the inside of the jigsaw puzzle is why you take lessons. When you take a lesson, I'm trying to give you pieces back that build your own game. So that picture's done with you in the middle with that ball coming off the end of your fingertips, right at the end of your toe, and your chin and your knee on the same plane. That's the one picture everybody looks at. So remember, taking lessons is about finding pieces of that puzzle to put into your own puzzle.
Question number 2. What's a way to fix timing with push away and step? I use a 5-step approach, and I noticed that on the second step, I push later than I step.
Well, I don't measure timing in the second step. That's not where you throw the ball from.
True.
I measure timing when your slide foot gets flat in front of your head. Your swing should be parallel to the ground. That's something I came up with when I wrote my book. God, it's been 14 years I wrote a book. I talked about my timing, and then I did a DVD, which you can't get. The book you still can on Amazon. And then I just did an instructional video. The game's changed. So if you're one-handed, that would be the one-hand instructional video with Dave Husted, Chris Prather, and Danielle McEwen. If you're two-handed, I brought in the big horses, Jason Momani and Anthony Simonson, the 2 best. They measure timing with their left arm when their foot gets flat in front of their head. So I couldn't fix it in your second step. I don't measure timing there. I measure timing when you slide, when you're throwing the ball. Timing is the ability for your lower body and your swing to work together as your core doesn't move at release. So having good timing in your second step has nothing to do with your scores.
And I know something that you've told me plenty of times is just walk the first 2 steps.
Walk the first 2 steps. You want to get your ball in your swing. But the reason why I don't measure timing there, I've been very fortunate to work with 2 of the best of all time. Tommy Jones, Chris Barnes. One moves it extremely early, one moves it extremely late. But at the timing spot, when their slide foot got flat in front of their head, both their swings were exactly parallel. Karen Doran-Ballard, Doug Kent, Dave Husted, Mark Roth. Now there's a whole group of bowlers. So I came out with it 14 years ago. So far, no other coaches or no bowlers have taken a shot at my timing spot. It tends to show up with a lot of good bowlers. So it's a great way to measure because it allows you to stay in balance and be consistent. That's why I measure where I measure, because it's right when you throw the ball.
Great answer. So make sure you check out a series if you haven't already. It's available, Mark Baker.
Some people move it late, some people move it early. I don't measure timing there. I do know this. People that tend to move the ball late always measure early when I measure them. They've been told they're late or early, whatever they've been told, to move it later. But that's not where I measure timing. So they move it late, swing goes back quick, feet are slow. You can't walk by the ball when the ball's in front of you.
Yep.
So if you push it really late, it's hard to get in time. You're always going to have early because you're going to pull it up. If you pull it up, conversely, then you got to pull it down. So when you go to slide, the ball's below that spot. Then your weight transfer gets onto your left leg. Shoulder comes in front. So you probably top it and spin it off to the right.
Little chicken wing.
No choice.
Question number 3. Okay, so as a two-hander, I drift about 7 to 10 boards. Where should I be looking so that if I get, I get that if I start on 20 and land on 30, that's 10 boards, right? But what arrows should I be looking at?
So most two-handers tend to miss half as much when they, so if you stand on 20, look at 10, you're probably going to slide on 30 and hit 15. That's kind of how I see it, because a lot of it's like that. So it's very tricky. If you try to stand on 20 and look at 15, you're going to probably drift too far to get on your body on the other side of your target. Until I see you bowl in person, I can't do that math for you. So I can't tell you where to look, because one thing, where you look and where you see the ball are 2 different animals. I've always looked at the arrows. I've never seen my ball hit my target in my life. Now, those who bowled against me in the 80s probably agreed. I never hit my target, but I did have an idea where it was going most times. I played basketball like you. So I've always seen my ball at 30 feet, which to me was when I shot a jump shot, I always saw my ball at the top. If I could tell if it's going left or right or front or back. So then I got a lot of my own rebounds. I shot it like, oh, that's short. I just, if you're really good, you don't miss left or right very long.
Yeah.
If you miss left or right a lot shooting jump shots, you don't get to shoot many jump shots.
Yeah, nice.
So if it's short or long, but I could tell halfway there. So I could always track my ball about halfway down the lane. It was either going where I wanted to break point or was inside of it. So I never really saw it. So it's hard for me to do that. So how you see the lane is very unique to each individual bowler because your feel is different than anybody else's. How you see the lane, I have bowlers tell me all the time, I'm playing 12, and then we look at it, they're hitting 9 every shot. Or I'm hitting 10, but they're hitting 13 every shot. Then they realize they don't see it at the arrows, they're seeing it 5 or 10 feet past it. And so the number they're telling me is correct, and they couldn't believe that where they're looking and where they're seeing it, because out here I can stop it anywhere I want. They're going, that's where I see it. Like, right, that's 10 feet past the arrows. Now it really is hitting 10, but at the arrows where you were looking, it was hitting 13. So all that goes into play. So I can't really tell you stone cold where to look. If you're sliding on 30 and your ball's hitting 15, 16, it'll probably be going to the Baker box. If you're sliding on 30 and it's hitting 10, you're not going to like bowling very much.
So I have a question that just kind of came up thinking about that. Is a good way to be able to help yourself find your best angles and where to line up when you throw a good shot and you get a flush strike?
I would just write down the numbers. I stood on 25, I slid on 30. I was looking at 12, I hit 15. Okay, and you keep track of all. What happens is, I think so many bowlers, it's either a good shot or bad shot before you throw it.
Yeah.
There are very specific places on the approach that I like to bowl from. I had my 7 or 10 spots, 17 and a half, 20 and a half, 20. I mean, that's kind of, I didn't like standing on the 4s and 9s or whatever. I didn't like, the arrows have to make sense to where you're standing.
Absolutely.
Like playing basketball, there were a lot of spots on that court I like to shoot from. And you see both players try to get to their favorite spot. And sports are sports. So I was always very, if I could stand on 17 and a half and look at 9, I bowled really, really good. So I had my spots on my lane, like in my stance where I'm targeting, where my feet are, have to make sense. Because there are spots in the lane, when I stand on 19, I don't know if I should look at 9, 10, or 11. None of them look right because I look cramped or wide open. So I had to get the spot, when I looked at my target, it looked hittable. So then I'm relaxed. If you're playing where somebody's telling you to play and it doesn't make sense, you will not throw that shot very well. So a lot of it's what you do in your stance. You have to have confidence that where you're standing and looking, you can actually hit it.
Great point. Okay, next question. Mark, I'm a right-hander. When I line up with my left foot, should I use the inside of my left foot or from the top of the shoe?
Sure. whatever. I always use the middle of my foot. So if I'm looking at this carpet, I'm looking at the yellow in the middle. Because when I look down at the approach, when I slide, I'm just going to glance at it. Oh, I slid on 20. I slid on 17. I can go by there because the dots, figure out what board it is. Yeah. I've always used the middle of my foot because it's just easy to look at the foul line and guess from there. You're more than welcome to look on the inside. Yeah. That's all.
Next question. I understand the drift and miss aspect. A lot of people are on this drift and miss right now. But how does that determine which board is hit down lane? Like, what's the extra math to it? I guess that's kind of what you explained in the last question a little bit.
I mean, it's just so the farther right you are, the nut where you slide and where you hit will be closer.
Yeah.
So if you slide on 15, you better be hitting 6, 7, 8. Because the math is if you slide on 15, your ball's going to hit here and go through 7. Well, you can just draw a line from the inside of from your foot through the target to the break point to the Baker box.
Yeah.
That's a really tight number. But if you slide on 25 and your number's that tight, you'll go Brooklyn. So if you slide on 25, you got to be hitting about between 11.5 and 13. You slide on 30 between about 15.5 and 17. I mean, I could go through, do the whole thing for you, but that kind of takes away from what I do for a living.
Absolutely.
But I mean, that's just me watching hundreds of shots. Now, if you're female and you show up and you're thin, you got really small hips and you're not very wide in the shoulders, your numbers will be completely different because you're so thin. I'm super wide. I got broad shoulders, so my numbers are always a little skewed. So there isn't a tried and true, this is the number. I mean, I've seen some lady bowlers or guys who are like, Norm Duke can literally slide on 16, 17 and hit 10. Yeah. If I slide on 16 and try to hit 10, I'm going to hit myself in the ankle with the ball. Yeah. I'm too wide. I'm too big of a guy to have my numbers match Norm's numbers. So a lot of it has to do with your body size, how broad your shoulders are, those types of things. So I just can't give you a set thing. You throw 5 shots in front of me and I can do it.
Yeah.
But that's just because I'm into that. I've always been into the math of it all. Because I always thought the best bowlers had the best geometry, and when I went back and looked, that's how it always worked.
Yeah, and it's really interesting too, because once you get that first 15 feet of the lane figured out,
the ball feeds.
The ball
just
does
feeds
what it's
to
going
the
to
tape,
do.
right.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything. There's nothing you even can do. It's not like you can go down there and redirect it yourself.
Right.
So taking observations of what's happening when your ball is going through certain parts and you're standing in certain parts of the approach are really important. Because
So that's why at my camp I talk about that a lot. One of your assignments is, when we talk about the Baker box and you're missing your drift numbers, is for the next 6 months, every time you bowl a game 20 pins over your average, write down the ball and write down your numbers. And you do put it in a spreadsheet, and after about 6 months, you're going to go, oh, wow, there's about 7 to 10 places I get all my scores from, and I tend to use this ball on that. When I'm playing out, it tends to be this ball. When I'm playing in, it tends to be that ball. So all of a sudden, you'll see balls work from better parts of the lane. Every ball that works at 5th arrow probably isn't going to work from 8, 9. And balls that pick up and roll really smooth from 9, 10, 11 probably aren't the ball you want to use in game 3 or 4 in a league when they hook and you got to go around them. So if you write the ball down and your numbers, the spreadsheet will kind of tell you how you bowl and what balls to use, I think. That's what worked for me. I was never the best bowler in the world by any means. I did okay, but I've always been able to help bowlers quite a bit by understanding their numbers. And once people get that, and they start buying into it, oh, I bowl really well from here. Once a person says that, the odds of that next shot being a pretty good shot go way up.
Way up. Comfort zones.
100%.
Absolutely. Okay, next question. Do your numbers / drift change depending on what zone you're playing? As a two-hander, I change my footwork and drift depending on the zone. Am I missing something?
No, because that's very common. A guy like me, one-hander that drifted about 4. If I tried to play first arrow and I had to slide like on 12, I might have to sand on like 2. I would drift 9 to 10 when I played way, way, way right. And as I got farther left in the lane, my drift tended to get a little less. So if I was playing 25, 30 when they really, really hooked, I didn't drift as much. So that's a lot of it. A lot of it is, that's a very good question. So I drifted left. So people that drift right tend not to drift right when they play out, but once they get left of 20, 25 or 30, they tend to walk back to 10 every time.
Yeah.
So people that drift right tend to drift a lot from in. People that drift left tend to drift a lot from out. That was an excellent question.
I feel a tendency sometimes when I'm playing further left, I have to correct myself to remind myself to walk straight, because as I'm looking at my target so much further right.
Yeah, when you walk back to your target, I just think it's bad news playing in, because you're walking towards the hook. And everybody's always trying to avoid the early hook. So when you walk back towards your target, anytime you play left of 12, you're getting the ball to the driest part of the lane the soonest. So you think the ball is always burning upwards, then you got to go to weaker balls. So I think it's very hard to get your ball to the right spot to make it hook when you walk right when you play in. Now, if you bowl somewhere with a ton of oil and all you do is play out, drifting right's great.
Yeah.
I mean, who are some of the best outside players of all time? You had Ozio, you had Walter Ray, you had Ferraro, you had Voss, you had Pedersen. Those guys all walk slightly right in their primes and late earlies when I bowled, in the late 80s when I bowled them on tour. The guys that could walk a little bit right, Gary Dickinson. Right of 5, they were unbeatable. Who are the guys that walk left? Well, you had the 2 big dogs, Mark Roth and Marshall Holman. Then you had guys like Ron Palombi and Tom Kreitz and Dave Husted, a guy named Jim Penkek. We all walk left. Well, you go look at all of our shows, we made most of our money was over there, and those guys made most of their money over there. So there is something to all that.
Okay. Great answer. Next question. What does a stronger ball actually mean?
Stronger ball means it picks up sooner. A stronger ball means it rolls sooner. It doesn't mean it hooks more. So they usually stronger ball on fresh. You want the lanes are hooking on the back. You want some ball to pick up and be a little smoother. Use your strongest ball to start. It blends out the lane. As a ball starts hooking earlier, then you go to your balls that go longer, have a little more reaction on the back.
Next question. If you start seeing that the oil track over your thumb, that the oil is tracking over your thumb, what does that mean?
That means at some point your ball's rolling over your thumb hole. There's a couple ways. I mean, usually what happens is you turn it too soon in your backswing. So your thumb's down. As you go to throw it, you flip it up, kind of like a full roller, so the track rolls up on your thumb. There's a couple explanations of that. That's something you might want to go to your local pro shop. There's ways to drill around that. That's what I would probably do. Get your hand to get that ball to roll a little different.
Okay. I recently switched to no thumb one-handed style. It seems if I come around the ball the same as I did with my thumb in, my flare wants to track over my finger holes. Do I need to change my drill layout to get a proper ball roll back?
That's ahead of my pay grade. I am not a ball driller.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of answers to that.
Yeah.
I'm not the right guy for that. Find your best pro shop in your area. Somebody knows about it. Somebody has a specialization in guys that don't use their thumb.
Yeah.
It's coming a bigger and bigger part of my process. I think today with Amir, we're going to do that. He has no thumb in it. So I'm 20% of my business now has that. So that's a whole different way of laying out balls. Find the person that actually likes it and has some experience with it. They'll be able to help you the most.
Last question. Is it okay if you have no drift as a right two-hander?
Very unusual for
Okay.
a two-hander not to have drift, because your third step, if you take 5, has to walk a little bit away from it, because the key to being a good two-hander is getting this left shoulder inside your right hip in your backswing. I talk about that a ton in my instructional video with both Belmonte and Simonson. They kind of do it, their third steps are almost magically the same, and both their left shoulders clear their right hips. So on the top of their backswing, their swing is matched to the break point. If you have no drift and your swing bumps out, if you measure yourself in the back, the top of your swing will kind of look inverted, like it's going towards the 4-pin or the 7, instead of going towards, probably the 6-pin, kind of where the Baker box is. So that's very critical. If you're super thin, you can get away with it. If you were as wide as me, that wouldn't work. Like I said, the two best that ever lived at it, Mr. Simonson, Mr. Belmonte, both have a very distinct third step, and that allows their left shoulder to clear their right hip. So that's why, even though they're two-handed and they go for the power, both when they're on are very, very accurate.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for answering that question. It reminds me of the swing set, analogy that you were saying before, and you have to have it open enough for your arm to be able to swing freely. You literally would hit your leg otherwise.
If you walk straight as a two-hander, it's hard to employ the swing set, because it's hard to get because two-handed you can't both, if you go from 1 to 2, we all tend to stay pretty square with our upper body. Our upper body would tilt 20, 30 degrees.
Yeah.
Now, the two-handed, this shoulder has to get up here, so you got to get your hands back here.
It's almost like a golf swing.
You've got to get that left foot to go away to get those shoulders half. If your left foot's straight, you're going to have to get it around your right hip, and that's going to bring in a lot of rotation with your shoulders and a lot of hand movement. If you're super coordinated, I guess you can get away with that, but the two best of all time don't, so that's kind of what I go by. Remember, I've never bowled two-handed.
Yeah.
I get the premise. I wish I was 17 again and could take a swing at it, because I'd be right there with my son at that 550 rev rate at 19 miles an hour. He's nice. I'm not. I would have been very mouthy about it.
Yeah,
I would have loved to have been two-handed at 17.
Your ball would have probably been moving a little faster than 19 at that point.
Oh, I'd have been yelling at people. It'd have been a terrible thing, but it sure would have been fun.
It would have been fun.
Oh,
Thank you so much as always.
If people are gonna hate two-handers, I would have given them a reason.
Yeah.
I'd have let them know before we started they lost.
So you think Belmo was too nice? Belmo was too nice about it.
I was way too intense. I was meant for the basketball court, where you had to run back on defense, so you couldn't get mad.
Yeah.
By the time you got mad, you had to go back and play defense, so you shut up.
Yeah.
Bowling was way too much time between shots for me to dislike you. There's a reason why I got no Nagy Award votes. I earned that, by the way.
It's still a competitive sport, though, so you got to have that.
And the best bowlers are super competitive. I'm not saying what I did was right. I'm just saying I was taught. I always remember, like, when I bowled on tour, I would get in trouble all the time. So you would get fine slips. I got a lot of fine slips. And they would mail them. When they got really in trouble, they would be registered letters to my house. My mom, my CPA at the time, my mom, what do I do with this? I'll just pay it. I earned it. But the problem was, I grew up playing basketball, so the more intense you were, slightly dirty, the coach thought you were the greatest thing. I'll never forget in the NBA Finals, because now I'm watching this Celtic City series, the greatest thing ever. And I'll never forget when Kevin McHale clotheslined Kurt Rambis. He about broke his neck. Tommy Heinsohn, the announcer, went, "That's the guy I want playing for me. That's how you play basketball." I went, "That's what I do on tour, and every time I do that, or I get mad, they give me a fine slip." In the NBA, they're giving a guy a bonus. I was in the wrong sport.
Yeah, bowling's non-contact, so.
Basketball, like he almost broke the guy's neck, and they're like, "That's how you play basketball." I'm like, yeah, I get it. Now go back on tour, ring in 10. Don't show any emotion. Huh? I want to punch somebody.
Yeah, no, for real. I think we all can relate to that feeling for sure, especially on the 10-pin.
Yeah, a lot of those. So yes, I had a little bit of a temper.
Oh, it's all good, man.
I'd have loved to have been two-handed.
You're the nicest guy now.
Yeah, I was very. That helped a lot. I 64 years old. If you don't mellow out at 64, you probably don't make it to 64. But I'm still fairly intense in some things. Ask my poor kid. But yeah, I never get hot coaching. I got hot bowling. Maybe I'm better at this. I don't know. But that was, yeah. But coaching's way. I'm a way better coach. I think I definitely have way more patience. I never had as much patience with myself competing as I do coaching.
I think that translates to life. I don't think anybody has as much patience with themselves as they wish they did.
No, I mean, it's just as I gotten older, I realized some of the things I was getting worried about probably didn't
matter.
The big difference, I think, a lot of it, when we went on tour, in my generation, we went on tour when we were young.
Yeah.
None of us went to college to bowl. So when you're on tour in 1920, I mean, you don't know what day it is.
Yeah.
You're staying at the worst motels and that kind of, you're such a kid. And so that was a hard thing. I probably grew up too late, but I wouldn't trade those memories for the world. So anyways, the next part about it, when I bowled on tour, we didn't have these.
Yeah.
If we'd had these, I'd have been in jail half the week. Now they're just good war stories.
Yeah, or fairy tales, who knows?
Wow. And I tell my son not to get mad. What a giant hypocrite I am.
Hey, you were a professional athlete.
Whatever.
You were living the dream.
I got to cut him some slack. Hey, for the people out there, I really appreciate these questions. You keep sending me all kinds of stuff. I get them all the time. They're great. I wish I had better answers for the numbers. Maybe it might be something I'll have to look into to put it, but I'm not sure how to do that. If I don't see you bowl in person, it's so hard to measure because two-handers and one-handers are slightly different because of rev rates.
I may be able to bring a salad bowl of bowlers for us to be able to test that on.
Well, I can do it in person. I can do it in 5 seconds.
Yeah, maybe I
so
can
you
get
gotta.
about 5
So I
minutes.
guess the easiest way to do it is find the bowler that looks
Like you.
has the speed and rev rate. Maybe and those two things. And if it's someone throw at 17, rev rate's 350, and he's one-handed, that would be good for you, or two-handed, because two-handers have a little different angles because their balls roll this way so much more. If you go watch from the back and you watch this way, two-handers balls roll. That's why they play lane so much farther left.
Yeah.
If you watch from the other, the one-handers, even when they trade behind it, have more rotation off their hand, where two-handers balls pick up way faster, they rev up quicker.
Yeah.
So they're always going to play the lane slightly different than one-handers. So their angles are slightly different just because how much more they hook it.
True.
So it's like, if you slide on 22, you must play 11.
This is going to work. Yeah, they don't line
11,
up like
10,
that.
that'll work if it's a general place, but I don't want to just say that.
Because it really does depend on your rev rate. It depends on your speed. It depends on your
There's a lot of
body shape
factors
behind
coming
it.
in,
Yeah.
and when I'm here watching with you in 5 minutes, I can figure out those factors, and then I ask you to do something in this, and I see what the ball does, and then it's on.
Now we're where we need
And then we've got
to be.
so then once you show it on video to somebody, here's where you slid, here's where you hit. It hit 6.4 at 44 feet in the Baker box. You split the 8-9. Then the bowler buys in. The reason why I'm such a big person, I always bowl on a full rack. I want them to throw a lot of strike balls and as many as you can. I don't believe you get better at something until you see it do the right thing.
Yeah.
I hear a lot of, I'm not working on my game. I'm just going to throw shots. I never shot any jump shots not trying to make the basket.
No, that's
I never had a
true.
coach like, go on the
Try
side.
to miss.
I realize you're missing the rim on every one, and you're perfecting your arc, and don't worry that you're missing the backboard. Never got that one. Never did soft toss. We're like, don't worry
About
that
hitting
you're
the
missing
ball.
the ball every time. You're taking a really good cut. Sooner or later, we'll figure out how to hit the curve. So as a coach, I'm always going to be a jock first. I was a jock, then I became a bowler, then I became a coach. So I'm always going to coach you athletically first, as a bowler second, and then I become a coach.
Okay.
So without even trying, that's kind of how I see bowling. I'm always seeing the athletic side do it first. What can I take of your athletic ability and make it better? And then put bowling on top of your athleticism, no matter what it is, and that's how you become a bowler.
Great context. Thank you as always, guys. Mark Baker, appreciate your time. And until next time, we will be here. Shout out to the crew.
Shout out to the crew.
What's up, everybody? We're back again with another set of questions for Mark Baker. How you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing great. We finished our second day of Camp Bakes here in beautiful Sunset Station at the Strike Zone. So I'm having a great day.
Perfect. Well, let's jump right into these. Question number 1. I don't know if it's a silly question, but what do you mean when the swing should go behind your legs?
The swing should go where?
Behind your legs?
I'm not real sure what that quite means with behind your legs. Your swing should come back pretty straight. So when you go to slide, your body's not in the way of your swing. Because momentum starts when there's no body parts in the way. So if the ball's on top of your swing and you're going to go slide a little bit left of it and there's no body parts in the way, that's the best place for your swing to be. I don't think it should be behind your legs. Then you have to wrap the ball around your hip to throw the ball.
Number 2. Should we focus on looking at the Baker box or should we focus on looking at the arrows?
Now, my last name is Baker, and I invented the Baker box. I look at the arrows. Now, I can tell where my ball is going by the Baker box. That is my ultimate goal for the ball to be there. But where I stand and where I slide and where I hit, those determine getting my ball to the Baker box. So I've always been an arrows guy. I always look at the arrows, but I'm very well aware of where the Baker box is.
Okay, perfect. I know a lot of people are going to be happy to hear that answer because they always want to look at the arrows. Number 3, as a right-handed bowler, why do you leave the bucket or the 7-pin? Is it from a lack of energy on the ball, or is it just because I'm getting a light hit?
So that's 2 different answers. If you're leaving a 7-pin, you're hitting the pocket light, maybe you don't have enough energy. If you're leaving the bucket, the 2, 4, 5, you're not quite lined up correctly. You need to move your feet and your target probably a board or 2 to the right. Your ball's not quite hitting the pocket. If you hit the pocket, you can't leave the 2-pin. So if you're leaving the 2-pin in company with it, your ball's hitting light, so you should probably move your feet and your eyes right, or go to a stronger ball. Now the 7-pin could be a mixer 7, a swisher 7, solid 7. That shot was probably in the pocket, just a bad break, keep firing away.
Number 4, can you practice too much, especially if you're not necessarily doing what you should be doing? Would this cause somebody to get bad habits, making it harder to unlearn and get good habits?
100%. I mean, I'm a big practice guy when I bowl. You know, obviously reps are reps, but if you're not throwing it good and that feel isn't there, and you're trying to bowl your way through it, and it's 2 or 3 days and you're putting in 10 or 15 games a day, and it doesn't feel right, that's when you should probably ask for other help from another person, another coach, or try to do something. You don't want to just keep grinding out the games when it feels bad. You should see some improvement before that happens. You can definitely bowl too many games and get out of whack.
All right, special guest in today's episode. Number 5, how do you measure timing for a one-handed 2-finger bowler? Am I supposed to base it either on the traditional 1 or 2-handed bowler, or do I just try to measure at the end of my swing?
No, I measure the 2-finger, no thumb bowler just like I measure a one-hander. When your slide foot gets flat in front of your head, I want that swing parallel. That's probably the trickiest part for that type of bowler, because without your thumb in the ball, you're very limited by how high your backswing can go. So getting your body ahead of your swing, getting that slide ahead of your, getting that foot in front of your head, so your swing's back here, that's where I measure timing for the no thumb, 2-finger, one-handed bowler.
Number 6, I've never changed the surface of my balls. When you say add more surface to the ball, does that mean making it smoother or making it rougher?
When you add more surface when your ball's not hooking, you would actually be making it rougher. You use Abralon pads, they come in 360, 500, 1,000. Obviously if the ball's not hooking at all, you would rough it up pretty good with a 500 Abralon pad. There's a bunch of different places you can buy them. Abralon pads are very effective, especially if you bowl tournaments. Some houses have way more oil. If you put a 4,000 pad on an Abralon pad, it'll actually smooth it out, make the ball go longer. So when I'm saying to rough it up or hit it with the Abralon pad, that usually means the ball's not picking up or hooking enough. That's when you go to the Abralon pad and get your ball to read the lane a little bit better.
Number 7, in your opinion, what is the proper way to warm up?
Slow. I see too many people trying to throw at full speed their first 2 shots. Now I get it when you bowl league, there's very limited time and you want to get ready to bowl. But to me, the first 2 or 3 shots should be almost half speed. You don't care where the ball goes. You want to see how much it hooks really. Find that place where it hooks a lot. And as you get more and more loose, shot 4 or 3, 4, 5, that's when you get closer to 80, 90%. So when you do get ready for league by the first or second frame, then you're going full speed. I don't think you need to throw any shots to warm up full speed. The last couple close, you'll be ready to bowl when it counts in league. But the first 2 or 3 shots, just got to get you like stretching. You got to get the blood flowing. You don't want to get where your feet are going slow and your swing's going full speed. That'll throw you completely out of time. So make sure when you warm up, your swing and your feet kind of match up. They're nice and smooth. And as you get closer and closer to being warmed up, then you throw your more natural shot.
And this is actually our final question of the day. Quick one here today. Number 8, how do you keep your head up and chest up pointing at your target? Sometimes it feels like I end up looking down at the floor and I drive the ball down into the floor.
That's exactly right. If you're here and your eyes go down, what happens is when your eyes go down, your head goes forward. So when your head goes forward, your shoulder socket rotates in, and that makes my thumb come on top of the ball. So that's why you look at your target, at the arrows, if you look a little farther. If I keep my head up and my breastplate up and my chin up, my shoulder stays back. If my chin goes down, my shoulder socket rolls in, my hand goes on top of the ball, and that's exactly why you throw the ball into the front part of the lane.
Perfect. Well, that was quick and easy. Thank you for your time today, Mark. Do you have anything you want to plug?
Hey, I just appreciate you guys sending all the questions in. Love working with the cleanup crew. Appreciate all the comments. I'll see you guys on the lanes.
What's up, everybody? We're back with another edition of Mark answering your questions today. Today, this is our second time the questions have come from Reddit. So if you asked a question on Reddit, this may be one of yours. So Mark, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Today was my second full day here at Camp Bakes at the beautiful Strike Zone Sunset Station here in Henderson, Nevada. Had a great group, had a good second day, so I'm feeling good.
Excellent. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into these then. The first question, what's the best way to work on reducing ball speed?
The best way to do that is to move up on the approach. The reason why I say that, if you try to throw it slower from where you naturally start on the approach, what's going to happen is you're going to decelerate on your downswing and your ball won't have any power. So you want to keep that timing there, that relationship between your foot speed and your swing. So start moving up in increments of 3 inches. Every 3 inches. Every 3 inches should be about a quarter to a half mile. So you should be able to, if you really want to work on your speed control and drop it a whole mile, that might be a whole foot on the approach. Every 3 inches is about a quarter mile an hour. I'd keep working on moving it 3 inches at a time. That way your timing doesn't get affected or your balance, so everything slows down together.
Question number 2. What are the most important areas to focus on as a new bowler?
The new bowler, having great balance. That's the thing I see people, the new bowlers, I know you're enamored and want to see it hook and you want to put a move on it, make it curve. If you can work on your balance and rolling it over a target. You're not throwing a ball. You throw a baseball, you roll a bowling ball. So work on your balance, don't try to get down too low. Work on your balance, really rolling it over your target so you don't fall off, having a nice follow through and having it roll off your hand. Work on your balance, hit a target, you can get the power later.
I know that people always try to go out of order, so that's going to help a lot of people at home. Number 3, if I'm drifting consistently, is it okay if during my approach I'm stepping pretty far left like Belmo does, or is that bad practice?
It's very good if you're a two-hander. If you're a one-hander and you drift as far as Jason, that's a lot. So as far as drift goes, as long as you drift the same amount and you can hit your target, then I find no problem. Anybody that drifts more than 7 left as a one-hander or 5 right as a one-hander, I try to work on that. My left-handers, my two-handers, if they drift more than about 15 left, I find that to be a problem. 15 is about the edge. I think most two-handers drift about 10 left, so I have no problem with that. And one-handers drift anywhere between 3 and 7 left and about 2 and 5 right. Those are my parameters. After those numbers get too wide, then I start working on that.
Number 4, I have a kind of weird question that's been cooking for too long in my head. Is the end game for bowling to disrupt your opponent's line while taking care of defending your strike line? This feels like the next level of gameplay after you understand transition.
You know, I hear all kinds of stuff about that. When I bowled on tour, we didn't have the best 4 out of 7 matches. We just bowled match play. I was never ever worried about anybody else but myself. I just did my thing and I adjusted to what was out there. I'm not sure I'd ever focus very much on that. I'm more of a John Wooden fan. When asked me what was he going to do when he played Pete Maravich, he said, "Son, you're asking the question backwards. What's Pete Maravich going to do when he plays UCLA?" I always worried about me. I did my job as best I could. When I was on, I didn't care what the other guy did. I made him follow me. So I've never really gotten into that too much. Like I said, I never bowled on tour the best 4 out of 7. I know there's some gamesmanship out there, and some of those guys are really good at it. Yeah, you Norm Duke. Probably the best that ever lived at it. But I never dealt with that, so I was always just worry about me, and I'd never worry about the other guy.
Perfect, and shout out to Pete Maravich, the original Pistol Pete.
That's it.
That's right, I actually
So I got that in there, baby.
I drew a Pistol Pete Maravich basketball card this year out of a brand new pack. I was like, wow, just this week.
There you go. I love it.
Number 5, what's the best way to combat second shift league oil when every ball type seems to burn out in the front and roll out?
Then you're going to have to go to much cleaner balls or some of the lower end balls. One of the new Hustles is really good at that. So you want to get balls that get through the front. I get it. The lanes are burned up. You're probably going to have to move farther left than you're used to find some type of oil. Then you're going to have to go to balls cleaner, maybe a hybrid or a pearl, something that'll get the ball through the front part of the lane. Probably add a little axis rotation, get your angles a little more open.
Number 6, I got a lesson from a coach for the two-handed swing, and he said to imagine using a snow shovel on the downswing and to finish with a handshake. Is that a good reference to imagine what the feeling should be like on the downswing?
You know, every coach has their style. I'm not going to say that coach is right and I'm wrong or how that goes. I've never heard of that analogy. It would take me a while to do it. I think of it when I coach two-handers, it's more of a swing set. So when you tilt, you push the ball out, you come back and your head tilts and it goes up, you get your legs underneath you and it goes forward. I see more of a swing set, how a swing set functions, because you're very limited how high your backswing can be because your second hand is on the ball. I don't think two-handers rotate their hands quite that much. I guess if a handshaker doesn't go past that's pretty good. They tend to be more in this zone right here. They don't tend to get around it too much. So more like that. I guess if you get to a handshake, I would never go farther than my thumb facing facing the ceiling. But as far as a snow shovel into the lane, I'm not sure about that. I've never tried that, so I can't make a statement on that. I see it as a swing set and everything coming out of your legs, throwing your hands forward. Or you can go to the markbakerbowling.com, click on the Games Change video series, scroll down, I have a two-handed instructional video with Mr. Jason Belmonte and Mr. Anthony Simonson, and we show you how they create their unbelievably great games, and that'd be another way of trying to help you as a two-hander.
Yeah, guys, and if you haven't seen that yet, Belmo and Simo, I mean, there's not much better people to show you, so all that combined, you'll take a lot out of that, so definitely check it out. Number 7. At what point within your backswing to release do you want to start applying rotation force to the ball?
I always add the rotation at the end of your toe when you're finishing your release. So your ball's back here, I would never think about it there. There's a release window from about 2 inches from the toe to about 3 inches in front of it. You want to turn the ball as late as you possibly can. I would never turn the ball early. Always turn it when it goes past your toe and add the rotation as late as you can.
Number 8. For people who are not rev dominant, how would you play using a stronger ball?
Well, if you're not rev dominant, that means you're probably speed dominant. So the stronger ball, excellent idea. You're always going to get a chance if you're speed dominant, like at the end of my career in league. I got to play farther right than just about everybody in the league because I was only really good at throwing it hard. As I got older, my wrist got weaker. My rev rate came down quite a bit from my heyday in the 80s. So I took advantage of being speed dominant. I threw stronger balls, and I tend to play right of everybody and take advantage of the free hook, and that's kind of how I made it, and I became a very good league bowler, and I was much more speed dominant, where earlier in my career, I was rev dominant. So a stronger ball, move right, take advantage of your speed. I'm a big guy, 6'3", 280, so it's very easy for me to throw it hard. Instead of me fighting my size, I took advantage of my size, stronger balls, farther right, and I threw missiles, and it worked out okay.
And finally, number 9. Is Mark ever coming back to Minnesota? I like getting lessons from him.
I do plan on coming back next spring. I've always come to Minnesota a couple times. Last year I had the video come out. This year I had some family issues come up. Somebody in my family got sick. I couldn't make it out. I'll definitely be back at Bogart's Entertainment Center. I'll try to come out next March or April in 2026. I look forward to coming back. Al and everybody out there, say hello. I love coming to Bogart's. They treated me great. I definitely plan on coming back.
Perfect. Well, as always, thank you guys for your questions and feel free to keep sending them in. These are from Reddit, but you can also ask any comment section in our video. I go through them and look personally, so I'll pull them out. Mark, as always, you got anything to plug? Maybe something from the East Coast in the future, maybe?
You know, right now everything's going really well. Got lessons coming up at the training center out at the Westpac. I got 2 more days here to finish up my camp in Henderson, Nevada. The next camp will be sometime in October, probably early October. I'll actually get the dates on my website. The cost is $1,400 plus the room. So everything's going really well. And I do enjoy your questioning, people. I love that all the new bowlers that are coming into bowling, you're finding it all through social media and YouTube, and you're finding all these outlets to get better. Keep working on your game, keep practicing, keep reading all that, finding all the stuff you can to get better, and I'll keep answering your questions and we'll grow this sport.
Perfect. As always, thank you very much, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
Clean up crew. What you gonna do is the clean up crew. Come on through to the clean up crew. Throw them balls, I hope you do, with the clean up crew. The clean up crew.
What's up, crew? It's Rich TV here, and if you or a brand that you may know are interested in sponsoring any of our videos on this channel, make sure you reach out to us, cleanupcrewbowling@gmail.com. We would love to have you. We have some spots open, and we want to continue to grow this game of bowling that we all love. So if that's you or a brand that you know, feel free to reach out to us. We do have sponsorship slots available. It can be per video, it can be a package. We're open to it. So just reach out, and see you guys soon. Until next time, shout out to the crew.